Yes, it is time for Speakers Idol 2023. I hear you shouting out there. My name is Rick Campanelli. I am so excited to be your host again this year. We have an incredible group of young people from British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec who are with us today to share their thoughts about some really important issues in our world today. You'll meet them in just a couple of minutes, but to get us started, I would like to introduce Michael Levitt, President and CEO of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies. Michael?
Thank you, Rick, and welcome everyone to the 14th Annual Speakers Idol Public Speaking Competition. Each year, hundreds of students in grades 6 to 12 from across Canada participate in our annual public speaking competition. And this year was no exception, with more than 200 speeches that were submitted from students from British Columbia to Nova Scotia. Our judges have had a challenging task narrowing down the top 12 finalists you will hear from today. Each and every one of you should be so proud of yourselves for having the courage to speak out about some of the most pressing human rights issues of our time. Your personal stories, reflections, and suggestions for creating positive change are insightful, and I'm inspired by each and every one of you. Throughout history, we've seen that hate starts with words, and when left unchecked, leads to violence. We believe that if hate can start with words, then so too can peace. I would like to thank Albert and Evelyn Krakauer and family for your incredible support of the Speakers Idol program. To tell you more about Speakers Idol, please welcome the Speakers Idol Committee, Ricky Brooks, Michelle Gleed-Goldstein, and Tracy Graff.
Thank you, Michael. Speakers Idol is a signature program for Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies, a nonprofit human rights organization committed to countering racism and anti-Semitism and preserving the memory of the Holocaust. Simon Wiesenthal was a Holocaust survivor who dedicated his life to preserving the memory of the Holocaust, pursuing justice, and promoting human rights. The Holocaust was a systemic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. The Nazis believed Germans were racially superior and Jews were a threat to the German racial community. Jews were the primary victims of the Holocaust, but the Nazis targeted other groups too, including people with disabilities, homosexuals, the Roma, the Sinti people, and individuals who did not agree with the Nazis' hateful beliefs. Anti-Semitism, one of the foundations of the Holocaust, is the hatred and prejudice against Jewish people. Simon Wiesenthal, who was targeted because he was Jewish, spent the rest of his life tracking down Nazi war criminals so that they could be brought to trial. His quest for justice, along with his belief in the importance of educating young people about this history, is all part of his legacy, his hope of breaking the cycle of hatred and intolerance.
Speakers Idol was created to help carry out this legacy. We wanted to provide a forum for young people to stand up and speak out about important human rights issues that exist in our world today and suggest ideas for creating positive change. This year, students reflected on Simon Wiesenthal's quote, "I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it." There were 211 written speeches submitted from British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. All of the students who entered the Speakers Idol competition this year were invited to a special virtual program to learn more about the history of the Holocaust and to hear survivor testimony. Educating students about the history of the Holocaust and centering survivor voices in this learning is foundational to the work of the Wiesenthal Center. We strive to create these learning opportunities whenever and wherever we can, and offering this unique program to Speakers Idol contestants seemed like a natural fit.
Each of our finalists this year have gone through a demanding review process to reach this stage of the competition. The 211 written speeches were read and reviewed by 3 different judges. The top 30 written speeches, which included 15 from the elementary panel, grades 6 to 8, and 15 from the secondary panel, grades 9 to 12, moved on to the quarterfinals. At the quarterfinals round, students were required to submit a video of their speech. The videos were reviewed by 3 different judges and narrowed down to the top 22 semifinalists, the top 11 from each category. One of the opportunities that we offer participants who reach the semifinalist round is to work with university-level debate team members to sharpen their public speaking skills. They immediately apply these skills in the semifinals round later that day. Judges then, once again, narrowed down the 22 semifinalists to the top 10 for the finals. We had a tie in both the elementary and secondary panel this year. So today, you will have a chance to see and hear all top 12 finalists. We are extremely excited for you to hear from our top 12 finalists, who will be judged by our panel of esteemed judges. I will hand the microphone back to Rick Campanelli to introduce our distinguished judging panel.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Michelle. I guess it's time for the students to stand up and speak out. But before we get to them, the Speaker's Idol judging panel includes 2 returning judges this year with 1 brand new judge joining us. All right, our first returning judge this year is Matthew Gottlieb, one of Canada's top litigation lawyers. Welcome back, Matthew. Nice to see you. Dr. Tony Zong. Yeah, oh, there we go. We got you.
Yep, good to see everyone. Thanks for having me back.
And Dr. Tony Zong as well. Also returning to our judging panel this year is a reconstructive surgeon with the University Health Network in Toronto. Welcome back, Tony.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And new to the Speaker's Idol judging panel this year is lawyer and public policy expert Anime Paul. Anime, how are you?
So good to be with you.
Thank you for joining this wonderful judging panel. Thank you, Matthew, Tony, and Anime for being here with us today. Now it is time to get started. We're getting excited. Today's competition will begin with the elementary panel, students in grades 6, 7, or 8, and our first speaker is Kiva Doherty.
My name is Kiva Doherty. I'm in 6th grade. I go to Sault School and I live in Gatineau, Quebec. My hobbies are spending time with my sisters, participating in the school news club, and playing soccer, football, and hockey. I participated in Speaker's Idol because I believe in human rights and I wanted the story of my grandmother to be shared with others. I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. Today, I will share with you why this quote is important to me, and I will tell you a story from the past. A story about human rights, a story that I learn from every day. This story is about my grandmother, how she survived the wars in Vietnam and her journey to freedom. It is because of her that I can be here with you today. In the winter of 1934, on January 23rd, my bangwai was born. This is where my story begins. At the time, Vietnam was already colonized by the French, and by the time bangwai was 6 years old, Japan invaded. Her father was conscripted to fight in the war, and 5 years later went missing in action. Bangwai was left to take care of her paralyzed mother and 6-year-old younger brother alone. She was only 11 years old. This would be the first time Bangwai learned how war could threaten her human rights. Japan eventually surrendered and the French remained in power. Unfortunately, the Vietnamese only had 5 years of peace until the Vietnam Civil War began. During the Civil War, Bangwai's mother and younger brother were killed. Bangwai became an orphan and homeless at 16 years old. This would be the second time Bangwai learned how war could threaten her human rights. The Civil War ended with the defeat of the French and the country split in half. At 20 years old, Bangwai moved to Saigon in the south seeking freedom and a new life. She opened her own business of buying and selling old electronics. With this newfound freedom and hope, Bang Wai started her family. U.S. troops arrived in Saigon in 1965 to support the Southern Vietnamese Army and fight the Viet Cong in the north. Bang Wai's business was doing well, and she started saving for the day she knew she must escape Vietnam. This would be the third time Bang Wai learned how war could threaten her human rights. In 1975, my grandfather was killed in war and Bang Wai was widowed. Bang Wai was left to take care of her 10 children alone. As U.S. troops started to leave Vietnam, Bang Wai secretly commissioned a boat to be built for the day she knew she must escape with her children. A year later, in the dark of the night, Bang Wai escaped with her family. The small boat was eventually rescued by an oil liner, and they were taken to a refugee camp in the Philippines. After 3 years of living in the refugee camp, Bang Wai made the hard decision to send her 3 oldest children to 3 different destinations in the US and Canada, because no one would sponsor such a large family. Her children, my aunt and uncles, were 16, 17, and 18 years old when they left the refugee camp to find a safe haven for their family. In 1978, at 44 years old, Bang Wai was reunited with her family in Canada, a country that welcomed them, a country that believes everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security, a country that gave them hope. Today, my grandmother is 89 years old. I'm one of her 21 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. It is because of her that we are all here today. By engaging with her past and remembering her story, I've learned that I can too be brave. I will have the courage to speak up whenever I see discrimination or injustice. I will make a positive change in the world by one day becoming a human rights lawyer. I will live up to the legacy my grandmother created for me.
Kiva, thank you so much for sharing that unimaginable story of your grandmother's struggles. That was absolutely fantastic, and what a way to start. Okay, time to turn to the judges, and I believe, Tony, you'll get us started.
Thank you, Kiva, for sharing such a powerful story. Let's critique this. What can I say? It was amazing. In terms of the story itself, how do you get a better story than starting when your Bang Wai was only 11 years old and then taking us through this lifetime of adversity, but more importantly, overcoming these adversities until she is 89 years old. I mean, this is what a Hollywood movie would be made up about. Right? And then let's talk about your storytelling. I thought you were fabulous in telling your story. You had excellent control of the story, pacing yourself extremely well, pausing when you needed to. You had excellent control of volume. And I think you showed appropriate emotion when it was necessary. So overall, I think the story itself doesn't get better than this. Storytelling is incredible too. So well done.
Thank you.
Kiva, it's Matt speaking. I thought that was fabulous. And I do want to center on the story because sometimes a story is so good, you really let the story tell itself. And I think that's what you were able to accomplish. You were able to tell the story yourself, and you didn't over-emotionalize it. You didn't under-emotionalize it, which is a very tough thing to do. So I'm not going to add a lot to what Tony said. I thought that was a fabulous presentation and really, really well done. Congratulations, and thanks for doing it for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, judges. Thanks again, Kiva. Our next speaker is Isla Mason.
Hi, my name is Isla Mason. I go to school at Rockton Elementary in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm a competitive speed skater and like spending time with my family and dog outdoors. I entered this contest for the first time last year and talked about girls' equity in sports. I was challenged last year to take my journey further and to explore what will come next. And that's why I'm here today. When I read Simon Wiesenthal's quote, I believe that there's no better solution than to constantly engage with the past and learn from it. I thought of women's equality and how those words ask us to look to the past to help solve the problems of the present and future. I researched Canada's history when it came to women and girls, and I was surprised by what I discovered. One of the first things that I found out is what an important day October 18th is. I had no idea that in Canada, October 18th is Person's Day. It marks the day on October 18, 1929, when the highest court in Canada at the time included women in the legal definition of person under the law. Before that day, women and girls were not legally considered people and could not serve in the public office. The famous five, Emily Murphy, Nellie McClung, Louise McKinney, Irene Parlby, and Henrietta Muir Edwards, were journalists, politicians, reformers, and activists from Alberta who asked the Supreme Court of Canada to answer the following question. Does the word person in Section 24 of the BNA Act include female persons? Can you believe that the Supreme Court said no? These brave women did not give up. They took their fight to the Judicial Committee of Privy Council of Great Britain and London, which is the highest court in Canada of appeal, and they won. Their fight paved the way for women to take charge in their own future. This is an important milestone to be aware of for a few reasons. First of all, it happened in 1929, which is less than 100 years ago. Women in Canada, one of the greatest countries in the world, were not considered people. This was shocking to me. How could have Canada gotten so wrong such a short time ago? Another thing that struck me was the power of the famous five and their impact. These five women inspired an entire generation of women to take charge in their own future. One other thing that I thought about was how difficult it must be for women in other countries, especially if Canada did not consider women people in the very recent past. My research took me to the current Taliban crisis. Just over 10 years ago, in Afghanistan, a girl named Malala Yousafzai became famous for speaking openly about how girls were treated, not as people. In 2012, a Taliban gunman shot her and two other girls in retaliation for her activism, for speaking up. Malala survived and became the prominent activist for girls' right to an educational freedom. Sadly, girls in parts of the world continue to be denied the basic rights as persons. Again, in the summer of 2021, the Taliban regained political control in Afghanistan. They took away the basic right to an educational freedom from the country's women. For many girls who are in Afghanistan right now, the end of an educational freedom means taking away their dreams to become doctors, teachers, lawyers, and much more. It takes away their ability to try and improve the lives of the lives around them. It takes away their hope. People continue to make these mistakes because they have failed to learn from the past. Simon Wiesenthal was right. We need to engage with the past, understand it, learn from it, and move forward. Only by learning from our mistakes will we not create the same mistakes again. I hope my speech here has helped educate people on where women have been, how far they have come, and how much further we must go. Thank you.
Wow, you know what, Isla, what can I say? Very educational. Thank you so much for that. We're going to get to anime in just a bit, but let's start with Judge Matthew. What did you think?
That was, Isla, that was really spectacular presentation. Your voice, your use of your eyes, it all showed passion about the topic. And as a listener, if we don't see you having passion, it's hard for us to have passion. But you really showed us how deeply you cared about the topic. So your oral presentation was really special. It was fabulous. Plus, You then take the topic that you did a history lesson and then brought it up to today to show us why you weren't just teaching us history. You were showing why we should care about this today using this quote. Was a beautiful wrap up to bring it back to Malala and current day. And I really commend you on bringing that all together the way you did. That's something to be very proud of. Congratulations. And again, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, I really just want to echo that. It was one of the best organized presentations I've heard in a while. You really did such a beautiful job of tying together the past and the present, and then also tying it into the future. I loved the way that you led us on that journey, and I love the way that you tied this journey of discovery that you went through to the quote that you were given. I love the way that you talked about the way that inspired you. And I think that, you know, the way that you wove things together really helped to bring it alive. It really helped people to understand exactly why we need to take the lessons from the past and why they're still relevant and why they can help to make a difference. And your tone, your presentation was so it was so friendly. You clearly knew what you were talking about. You were clearly inspired by the brief that you've been given, and so congratulations. That's fantastic. And I learned a lot.
Thank you, Anna Mae. Thank you, Matthew. Isla, if you're still there, I'm from your neck of the woods. I grew up in Hamilton. You're in grade 8. What high school will you be attending in September?
I'll be attending Dundas Valley.
Dundas Valley. Beautiful. Hey, who's that there?
I'm Mr. Campanelli. How are you?
I'm doing great. Who do we have here?
Mr. O'Connor. It's nice to see you, Rick.
Nice to see you, Mr. O'Connor. Okay. All right, we'll let you guys get going. Dundas Valley. That's a good school in our neck of the woods over there, Hamilton/Dundas. Great job, judges, on the critiques. Next up is Evira Fernandez.
Hi, I'm Evira Fernandez. I'm in grade 8 at Lester B. Pearson High School here in Ottawa, Ontario. I play the piano, I like playing badminton, and I recently got into volleyball and made it one of my favorite sports. I have always been interested in public speaking and saw the Speaker's Idol as an amazing opportunity to showcase my talent. I think this competition is a great way to speak up for the people whose voices have been silenced and ignored. I'm here to spread word and raise awareness about the global refugee crisis and hope that someday we can create a positive change in our world. Each individual deserves acceptance. However, we fail to acknowledge this basic principle. Discrimination in our communities has a major impact on people's lives. Inequality towards people based on their gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, or religion has always been an unaddressed issue in society. Inequality towards refugees is one of the important aspects of discrimination that is often not looked upon enough. In my opinion, the refugee crisis is one of the significant human rights issues that should be given importance. It is important to be aware of the challenges they experience and create meaningful changes. According to the United Nations, human rights include freedom of speech, freedom from slavery and torture, the right to employment, education, and liberty, and most importantly, the right to life. Majority of the people are having their rights denied because of who they are or what they believe in. Refugees are being forced out of their homes, families, and lifestyles, mainly due to wars and conflicts. They lack access to hygienic resources like food, water, and clothing, and their education is put on hold. People live in poverty and experience stress, anxiety, and depression. One of the recent United Nations reports states that there have been more than 103 million refugees worldwide. A current example is the displacement of people because of the Ukrainian war of 2022. With countless homes and civilian infrastructure being destroyed, numerous deaths and severe injuries still occur. Every day, thousands of Ukrainians are forced to immigrate, leaving them with nothing. The biggest problems they face are finding housing, jobs, medical care, and assistance to raise children. Many of these refugees travel to Western countries for safety reasons. According to Simon Wiesenthal's quote that says, "I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. Every human should understand the consequences of problems that violate human rights and try to make things better." This is a sensitive topic to talk about, but we should take the initiative to raise awareness of these refugees. I think it's possible to help camps and organizations that assist refugees by donating, volunteering, fundraising, or simply talking about it. With social media being a huge part of the present world, we can use it as a way of communicating and spreading word about the living conditions of these refugees. Let's work together by developing a respectful and encouraging environment. The question is, are you willing to take up this opportunity for a better world?
Avira, outstanding stuff. I'm just going to rewind a bit. These students, I know it's still early, these are elementary students, wise beyond their years. Would you not say, Anna Mae?
Absolutely, and it really gives me a lot of. I think we're going to leave what's already as judges and students participating in this. Thank you so much for the presentation and for really shining the spotlight on one of the most important threats to freedom right now, which absolutely is displacement. You're absolutely right that refugees in the past and in the present and in the future really deserve attention. I love the way that you shared the history. I love that you proposed really constructive solutions. And it was really great to do with the challenge. I love the way that you drew people in and then said, this is something that we all can do something about, and what are you going to do about it? So thank you for that great presentation. Thank you for presenting that challenge. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Avira, I cannot agree more. I think you are a natural speaker. You have such a calm way of speaking that I think serves to be both educational, but also you do have your own unique sense of engaging the audience too. So, for example, at the very end, when you left us with a question, what are we willing to do? I mean, that's very, very provocative and leaves us, you're tasking us with that question at the very end. I thought that you used very sophisticated and mature language. It was excellent how you brought in the UN definition of human rights and worked that into your speech so well. And thank us on the global refugee crisis today. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, judges. Well done, Avira. Our fourth speaker is Carla Wu.
Hi, my name is Carla Wu. I live in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and I go to McLeod's Landing Public School. I am currently in grade 8. I enjoy playing badminton, skiing, and swimming. I joined Speakers Idol to raise my voice about issues that matter to me and create a positive impact in society. I remember my very first visit to Toronto. As I walked through the streets with my parents, I noticed beautiful buildings and beautiful parks. But there were some people sleeping on the grass and pavement wearing shabby clothing. Now that I am older, I understand who these people are, and it makes me wonder what it must feel like to sleep on the hard concrete during the harsh winters, or getting attacked by the vicious, disease-carrying mosquitoes during the summer. The problem of homelessness is a persistent one, where the streets become their only marker of identity. Why is nothing being done? Homeless people make up less than 1% of our world's population, which is the equivalent to 150 million people, and this number will continue to increase as our world's population grows. That is, if we choose not to tackle this pressing issue. Many people turn their heads away, afraid to look at these people head on, but you can't hide from the truth forever. Homelessness affects our society in a negative way. It affects our health and safety because diseases like the Spanish flu and HIV are easily transmissible if sanitary conditions among the homeless are not addressed. The Spanish flu of 1918 was a grave reminder that tight quarters promote airborne diseases, which has spread like wildfire. Today's homeless shelters remain no different, dangerously overcrowded, without proper air filtration systems or adequate social distancing guidelines, leaving these individuals particularly vulnerable to illnesses. HIV is another example. In fact, between 2016 and 2019, we saw an incredible rise in HIV cases among the American homeless population, a jump in cases from 9,240 to 11,000 in just 3 years. Fast forward to 2020, we were all hit with the coronavirus, another airborne disease. Homeless people were affected the worst. A catastrophic number has been tragically affected here in Toronto alone. 62% of our unsheltered homeless population has died from the coronavirus since 2020. The homeless, overlooked by the greater population, expose themselves and others to an increased risk of diseases. If the government were to prioritize social assistance among the homeless, it would give them equal privileges as us and would protect the public from any unintentional risks they may have on us. Simon Wiesenthal once said, "I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and learn from it." History is going to repeat itself if nothing is done. At the moment, our government has committed only $3 billion over 9 years to address the pressing issue of homelessness, which is only 0.3% of its total spending to 2021. It is just a drop in the bucket of its total spendings. A little more money could have made a much more significant impact. So why don't we assist the homeless to the right direction and support a new start of their lives? There needs to be hundreds of warm shelters with food, medication, mental support, and the other necessities every human needs to lead a good, stable life. There needs to be education and social workers to support the homeless and bring them from the streets to getting a home and a job. We need to think of the Spanish flu and HIV epidemic to do everything we can to get people into housing and a brighter future. This is how we will learn from the past. This is a future we should create. Thank you.
Wow, Carla, we need you as Prime Minister one day. I'm pretty sure we all agree with that. Let's turn to the judges. We're going to hear from Matthew, but first, Tony, what do you think?
I thought that was great. I totally agree. You are a gifted educator. You went from the Spanish flu to HIV to coronavirus, so you really touched on so many relevant diseases. I thought you really gave an excellent and unique voice to the homeless population. And you're absolutely right that although homeless people are overlooked by the greater population, they still contribute to our community. And I think that they would be so proud to have a spokesperson like you today.
Thank you so much.
That was fabulous. I remember my very first visit to Toronto. I was hooked right there because I wanted to know what that meant and where that was going to go. An intro, an opening line is frequently the hard thing to come up with. And I thought you nailed that perfectly. You did really wonderfully. And your use of statistics was very compelling and was at no time boring. So I really enjoyed and was educated by the topic, and a great use of the quote that I wouldn't have come up with. So great work. That was really great.
First of all, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. This was a very long journey, but I enjoyed every step of the way. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Oh, excellent. So nice. Very, very good. All right, our next speaker is Amara Lizanthan.
Hello, my name is Amara Lizanthan. I'm in grade 8 and I go to St. Luke's School in North Bay, Ontario. My hobbies include painting, learning languages, playing the piano, and of course, public speaking. I've been competing in competitions not unsimilar to this for a couple of years now, so when I saw the poster for Speakers Idol online, I knew I had to sign up. I'm incredibly grateful to be at this point and I'm excited for you all to hear my speech. Thank you. Imagine you have found yourself accused of a crime, unaware of your rights, fearful, and dealing with the corrupt legal system that blatantly mistreats cases. For the more than 5 billion worldwide who lack access to justice, this instance is far from made up, hindered by factors like race, age, gender, literacy, disability, income, and location. The right to justice is based on systems that abandon many they are supposed to protect. With race-based police brutality highlighted after the death of George Floyd, custodial torture deaths in Asia and Africa, and unfair trials being recorded globally, the pitfalls of our current justice systems clearly demonstrate a lack of care for the marginalized. So, how do we make a difference? The words of esteemed author Simon Wiesenthal provide insight. I believe there is no other way than to constantly engage with the past and learn from it. The past is a reflection of the processes that led to its occurrence. Within that, we can identify mistakes that caused crises. Then we can avoid them, using them for future solutions. In the famed words of Spanish philosopher George Santayana, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. To start change, the Court Information Program in Vancouver addresses cultural and linguistic barriers for Spanish and Asian individuals. Its effectiveness significantly reduced adjournments needed to process cases. Another example is the Native Court Worker Program, where staff provide assistance to Indigenous offenders. And prosecutors are additionally educated about the unique circumstances defendants face due to discrimination. Resolutions like these are practical steps addressing intersectionality and access gaps locally. Yet, what happens to cases elsewhere that don't receive recognition? When their histories and past are silent, censored, ignored, how can we learn from them? To expect the future not to follow in their footsteps? We often believe we are powerless to make change beyond ourselves. This powerlessness combines with ignorance, a refusal and denial of what we do not know. That is what breeds indifference. Blissful ignorance, a privilege we can only have by distancing ourselves from the plight of others, is dangerous. By not illuminating these struggles, we play into the hands of oppressors. We fail to recognize the humanity of those disregarded. To look back, yes, is to view history stained with violence and injustice. But to overlook that due to our own discomfort is alarming when there is much to be done if we wish to make an impact. Looking to the past is the key for the future, and indifference is the biggest enemy to change. We need to know how our current events have come to be, including our atrocities, to attain their guidance and nuance. Keeping these precedents in mind inspires us to do better, to stand up against injustice, so the past we leave behind is one that's worth following in.
Amara, very, very well done. We're going to hear from NME, but first, Judge Matthew.
I smile a lot when I'm listening to these because I'm amazed by how good they are. I really am. Amara, that was a spectacular presentation. Your command of your voice, your command of your topic is spectacular. I'm not sure how much time you spent trying to create these fabulous quotes, but you did. Looking to the past is the key to the future is wonderful. Imagine you found yourself accused of a crime as a start. Wonderful. Gets us hooked immediately. And you hit one of the key problems, which is as people listening to these types of presentation, where we all think, well, what can we do about it? The problem's too big. And by giving the practical examples of Vancouver, for example, it's very powerful because it makes it real and gives us the thought about we could do something. And I thought that was a great use of the situation. So I could go on for a while. That was really wonderful. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Mara, for that presentation. And it was, as a lawyer, and I'm sure Matthew would agree, as another lawyer, that I'm sure both of us were absolutely drawn to the law for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. The many people, both in this country and around the world, that don't have access to justice. And so the way that you drew us into that and explained, why that mattered, why that matters to us as an individual, but also as a society was really, really powerful. I also love the way that you acknowledge, it's not always easy. Grappling with the past and acknowledging the mistakes of the past is not always going to be an easy thing. It's not always going to be comfortable, but we pay a price if we don't do it. You're absolutely right. And that's also another very, very powerful thing to have said. I think that was a really profound insight that you had in your presentation. And I guess the practical side of me and maybe the lawyer side of me love the way that you tied all of this together with the really practical solutions. It was just great the way that you said that you empowered people by telling them that there were things that they could do concretely together in order to help create more justice in Canada and around the world. So thank you so much for a great presentation.
All of that, and it was presented in such a warm manner as well. Amara, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Our final speaker in the elementary panel is Vaishnavi Verma.
Hello everyone, my name is Vaishnavi Verma. I'm a 13-year-old grade 8 student going to Sault Academy in Surrey, BC. My hobbies consist of debate, crocheting, dancing, and playing badminton. I mainly wanted to pursue Speaker's Idol so I could raise awareness about a topic that does not have enough recognition. It is crucial to the lives of many people, but most people just do not know that it exists. And I really want to change that. So that is why I'm here today. I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. That was a quote from Simon Wiesenthal, a Holocaust survivor. This quote applies to a major human rights crisis, the Uyghur disenfranchisement. My name is Vaishnavi Verma, and I'm a grade 8 student in Surrey, BC. I recently learned about the situation of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, China due to a Model United Nations conference I attended, and this quote opened a shelf of opportunities and solutions. Uyghurs in China have been detained within re-education camps to reduce separatism according to the Chinese government. However, multiple accusations from and interviews with Uyghurs reveal that several rights were stripped away from those residing there. Around 1.8 million Uyghurs, over twice the population of San Francisco, are tortured, sexually assaulted, taken from their families, and much more. Not every Uyghur would perform such attacks. So why are all Uyghurs being punished? Their families have also been threatened, resulting in a much larger scale of people affected. On top of that, the Chinese government has destroyed countless mosques in China, stopping Uyghurs from practicing their religion. The re-education camps that claim to teach Uyghurs have an absurd number of similarities to concentration camps during the Holocaust. These re-education camps also share several common traits with residential schools, one of the worst parts of Canadian history to this day. All of these different camps and schools are involved in getting one race to change their ways. Does the world see that history is repeating itself? This may be one of the biggest human rights violations since World War II, contradicting one of the most crucial phrases, never again. We cannot let another tragedy take place. All these similarities to the past indicate that this could be avoided once these parallels are seen and acted upon. If people learned more about such tragic events, they would speak out more. If people learned more about the past, they could understand the present and the future further. If we, as a society, acknowledge these horrific events, we would be more inclined to help solve this issue. At the MUN conference, there was a person who had over 20 relatives trapped within the confines of these re-education camps to assimilate into the larger Han Chinese. The world is blatantly disregarding the millions of people suffering and is turning a blind eye. We have the power to change that, but we simply do not know how. The newer generation could be a catalyst of change. We hold the future within our hands. But how can we rule the future if we do not know the mistakes of the past? The only way to an inclusive future where people are not tortured, forcibly given birth control, or ripped away from their families within these re-education camps is by educating ourselves to see how we stopped it previously. And finally, history repeats itself. The Uyghur Muslim crisis is evidence of such, proving that the only way to a brighter future involves engaging with the past and learning from it. Thank you.
Wow, Vaishnavi, the conviction, the passion, you most definitely got our attention. We're going to hear from the judges, starting with Anami.
Thank you so much, Vaishnavi. Your passion really just rang through. It was really fitting for such important. You're absolutely right in mentioning a living thing. It's not just a historical memory. Never again means that we have to be aware of what is going on around us. An example that was and one that was right here on these lands. That was very powerful. The call to action and the optimism that you have about your generation and younger generation's ability to take action, all the while remembering, as you said, what Mr. Rosenthal said. And I love the way that you put it all together. So thank you so much for your passion, and thank you so much for a really well thought out presentation on an incredibly important topic. Thank you.
Well done. I could not agree more. And you said in your introduction video that your goal was to raise awareness of a topic that is not well known by most of us. Well, you have successfully achieved your goal. I didn't even know, as a person of Chinese heritage, of the tremendous human rights crisis that the Uyghurs find themselves in as a minority Muslim group in China. And the way you spoke, that was so impassioned and that was so natural. It really felt we had no choice but to be drawn in. And we felt that you were leading us to a movement to help these people. And so in that, you have fully succeeded, and I congratulate you.
All right, thank you, Vaishnavi. Thank you, judges. We are now going to move directly into the secondary competition. Our next group of speakers are all in grades 9, 10, 11, or 12. And our first secondary speaker is Sonia Kovton.
Good afternoon, my name is Sonia Kovton. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Ukraine. I currently study in Pickering College, Newmarket, Ontario in grade 11. My hobbies are reading, cooking, fashion, and frisbee. I decided to take part in Speakers Idol competition because I wanted to speak out about something that is important to me and tell my story. There's currently a war going on in my country, and I want to remind people that it's more than politics, and it is affecting people on a daily basis. I believe there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. My name is Sonia Kovtun, I'm 17 years old, and I'm from Ukraine. Home. 4 letters, but such a differing meaning for everyone. For me, home has always been about a place for coziness and calm, with people who I love around, and simply a place where I can be myself and relax from the busy, crazy world outside. Until I lost home. It was a random Thursday night, and I was away from Ukraine at my school Pickering College, Newmarket. It was a normal evening after school, co-curriculars, dinner, and as I was scrolling through the Instagram, I saw the heartbreaking news. Russia invaded Ukraine. 5 cities are under attack. Part of me was completely in denial. However, I had to face the reality. The first thing that I did was to text my mom, who obviously didn't respond because she was sleeping, but thank God my city was saved the day. And I still cried. I don't think I've ever cried that hard and that much in my life. But when I went back to Ukraine for about 2 weeks in the summer, it got even harder. I heard those ear-splitting air sirens go in such ways inside your body and completely destroy you. Let me make this clear. Air sirens warn you if there's danger coming, and that's the sign you need to go to the bomb shelter. They can happen 20 times a day. And for me, as a very sensitive person, it was very hard to hear them. I had a panic attack, 1, 2, 3, every day, and I was just so devastated that the place where I was supposed to feel calm and cozy had become the place where I felt the most in danger. My home could be destroyed any minute, any second. So now I don't have home. And no, I'm not homeless, and my house is still there. But my definition of home has been shattered. And yet the war in Ukraine has made me realize that home is really not about the building. It's people who make it meaningful. I cannot control the choices of others or the war right now. So I choose to learn from the past and be an upstander. Andy Reddy, a child Holocaust survivor who was born in 1942, visited Pickering College and reminded us of the importance of standing up and speaking out, of going against the tide and protecting victims from the injustice. One time when Reddy and his mother were being marched down the road, someone grabbed the blanket that she has been carrying, and someone else spoke up and asserted it to be returned because it was for a baby. Who could be the one person who spoke up? The mom wondered. Reddy said that that was a case of standing up rather than standing by. Mila Kunis became one of the upstanders to talk about the war in Ukraine. She opened campaigns Stand With Ukraine and raised $37 million for Ukrainian refugees. Upstanders have a magical ability to make changes in the world, so I choose to be one of them, because I believe there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it.
Sonia, that was outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing your very personal story with us. Let's turn to the judges right now. We're going to hear from Matthew, but first, Tony.
Sonia, what an incredible story. And you're an unbelievable storyteller. And thank you for sharing a story that's obviously so close to your heart with us. What can I say? You painted this imagery that is hard for us to put it behind us. I mean, the way you spoke with such emotion and authenticity. I mean, I can feel the sirens going through my ears as you tell the story. And you asked profound questions. I mean, profound beyond your years of, you know, what is home, but a 4-letter word that holds such meaning and different meaning to all of us. And your description of a lady with the blanket and standing up for basic rights and speaking up when nobody else spoke up. It was your story was weaved with emotion, with imagery, and it was one extremely compelling speech. So an excellent job.
Thank you so much.
I won't say much more than that. It was a really effective emotional presentation. Your control of your voice for the purpose of emotion was spectacular. And as you move forward in life, you should keep that up because you sucked us in very, very well at the beginning with your very gentle 4 letters, home, the hugginess of it and the warmth of it and how lovely everything is. And then you devastated us within a matter of 5 words. And you did that all through your voice and your tone and your control. The content was there for sure. But if you didn't have that beautiful use of your intonation and your emotion through it, it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. So keep that up. That was wonderful for all the reasons Tony said, and I echo it. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, judges. It is a powerful thing when goosebumps appear on arms, and that's what you did to my body anyway, Sonia. So thank you for sharing that story. Great presentation. Okay, our next speaker is Clara Bertoldi.
Hello, my name is Clara Bertoldi. I'm in grade 10. I go to De La Salle and I live in Ontario. In my spare time, I enjoy playing piano and going to the beach. I decided to participate in the Speaker's Idol competition because I wanted to share my thoughts on an issue that really matters to me. Imagine that you were fired just because of your religion. Imagine that you were forced to leave your home and move elsewhere in order to pursue your career aspirations, not because you weren't qualified or talented, but just because of your religion. Sounds crazy, right? You're probably thinking, nothing like this would ever happen in a free country like Canada. And yet, it's exactly what happened to Fatima Anvari, a Muslim teacher in Quebec who was fired because she wore a hijab. It's exactly what happened to Amrit Kaur, a Sikh woman who had to move from Quebec to BC in order to pursue a teaching career. Both of these women, like so many others who wear religious symbols in Quebec, had to choose between their religion and their job. Why? Because in 2019, the Quebec government passed a law known as Bill 21 that banned teachers, police officers, lawyers, and other workers in the public sector from wearing any religious symbols while on duty. I believe that Bill 21 violates the constitutionally guaranteed religious rights of citizens in a way that disproportionately impacts religious minorities, and therefore must be abolished. Even though Bill 21 bans the wearing of all religious symbols, this does not affect all religions equally. For example, the wearing of a Christian cross necklace is done as an expression of faith, but it is not considered by Christians to be a necessary act of worship to God. The same cannot be said for wearing symbols like the hijab, turban, or kippah, which some Muslims, Sikhs, and Jews consider to be a divine mandate. Of these 3 religious minority groups that are negatively impacted by Bill 21, studies have found that Muslims, and in particular Muslim women, are the worst affected. In fact, 2/3 of Muslim women in Quebec have reported being either a victim or a witness to a hate crime since Bill 21 was enacted. By disproportionately targeting religious minorities, Bill 21 limits the employment opportunities that those who wear religious symbols have access to, and forces these individuals to make a choice between observing their religion or pursuing their dream career, which is absolutely outrageous. Religious freedom is a right that is central to any democracy. And a disregard for this right once led the world to the most devastating example of religious hate, the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were brutally killed because of their religion. As Simon Wiesenthal, a Holocaust survivor, once said, "I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it." The Holocaust teaches us that religious freedom is a right that must be protected. We cannot allow ourselves to stand by and do nothing while the rights of religious minorities are being violated. Instead, we must join together and act by speaking out against Bill 21, voting against Bill 21, protesting against Bill 21, anything to raise awareness and rise up against the injustice that this law causes. Because religious freedom is a right that is worth fighting for.
Clara, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. We're going to turn to our judges now, Anna-Mee, but first, Matthew.
Clara, that was so good. The content was so fabulous. You had me from the second you started speaking. Your use of the repetition of imagine that was great. But then there are some arguments or positions that you can't see the other side of because the speaker is so clear on the position that there's only one side to it, and so persuasive by their content that you can't imagine there's an argument against it. And that's what your presentation was. So I don't know how long it took you to put together that flow of information, but it was so compelling. I thought after about 30 seconds, she doesn't have to continue. I'm done here. That was just perfectly done. That was great. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
And Matthew is a tough nut to crack as a great litigator. So that's a huge compliment, Clara. I really want to first of all congratulate you for taking on such a timely and important topic for Canada and doing such a great job of it. You really laid out the issues, the consequences so well. You tied it into actually all of the themes of today. You tied it into Mr. Wiesenthal's quote about the past, but also you tied it into standing up and speaking out as well. You know, all the ways in which this is important, and really why it is so important to remember that this is not something new, that this is something that has happened before. And as Michael Levitt said at the beginning, if you're silent when these things happen, then there are major consequences. So it was just fantastic. It was incredibly challenging. It was a call to action, and as Matthew said, it was incredibly persuasive as well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you, judges. Our third speaker is Nevaeh Pine.
Anine, my name is Nevaeh Pine. I am a grade 11 student from White Pines High School, Ontario. I am an advocate for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls of Canada, and I am also a part of my high school wrestling team. I joined Speakers Idol because I believe in our human rights, and I believe we need to ensure that our human rights are protected. Thank you for giving us this platform to speak on. If I went missing, would you look for me? Would you see my face all over the news? Would you care? Would you demand to know what happened to that girl? Have they found her? You might be wondering, why is this girl so worried about disappearing? It's because statistics show I am 5 times more likely to go missing than other women and girls. I am 16 years old. I am Indigenous. It has been called the hidden human rights crisis and national tragedy. The missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls of Canada. The issue of these missing women in Canada is as old as Canada itself. Indigenous women and communities have long called out for help to the high rates and appalling numbers, but their calls were ignored by the federal government. Finally, in 2016, the government launched a national inquiry for these women, but most families are still waiting for answers on the countless unsolved cases. We are the most targeted and the least seen by media and law enforcement. Simon Wiesenthal said, I believe there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. It is not something you forget or get over. If there can be any reconciliation of the past, it consists of the retelling of what happened and recognizing and challenging systemic racism and discrimination. Silence is your compliance. This is a call to action. These women are someone's mother, someone's daughter. These women are someone. Many of these women were completing their education. Women like Loretta Saunders, an Inuk woman who was murdered at the age of 26. Loretta was completing her honors thesis on this very subject when she herself went missing in 2014. Maisie Ojic and Shannon Alexander were 16 and 17 years old, last seen September 8th, 2008 at a school dance. Police called them runaways, but Maisie's mother said she would have called after seeing her family crying and looking for her. Tina Fontaine was 15 years old. Her body was pulled from the Red River in Winnipeg, where many other women were found. It was Tina Fontaine's case that made an impact, and people have begun to realize the truth of this hidden crisis and open their eyes. Every year, we gather outside the courthouse to drum and sing and send prayers to heal the families who are suffering. Everyone is welcome to join and stand up for these women. But once a year is not enough. Dangerous stereotypes have allowed people to make excuses and not look or help these women and families properly. It is time to stand up and to stop this, to bring our voices together and not let this continue in our country. There's a message being shared, the author unknown. I am a strong Anishinaabe woman. I am content. If there ever comes a time where I go for groceries and don't return, where I go to school or a friend's house and don't come home, no, I did not voluntarily leave my family. I am not out partying. If there ever comes a time where I don't return, no, someone took me against my will. Don't make excuses as to why I might not have returned. Look for me. Please, these women do not get the media coverage they deserve. They do not ask to be taken. We need to stop victim blaming and stand together. We need to do something because no one asks to disappear. Miigwech.
Nevaeh, that was so powerful, and I want to thank you personally for being a part of Speakers Idol 2023. We met you last year. You were a part of Freedom Day as well, and I so looked forward to hearing your speech, watching your presentation. It's so moving. You're making us want to do things. That's enough for me. Let's get to our judges. Tony, we will hear from, but first let's start with Enemy.
Miigwech Nevaeh, that was, I think, something that will stay with me for a very long time. And I think some of your words will give me courage, and other words haunt me. You chose you were so brave to choose a topic that I think more than anything exemplifies the legacy of Simon Wiesenthal here in Canada in terms of reconciliation with the past, in order to not repeat those mistakes. So thank you so much for your courage and your voice and your anguish and your passion and your conviction. All of that was extremely, extremely clear. I don't think anyone could hear that and not feel moved to be part of the solution, moved to be part of true reconciliation. I think that your words, those few minutes that you were talking there, were a million words in Parliament because they were so profound and so much from the heart. And so thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for your courage and your passion and for your call to action.
Wow, wow, wow. I, just like Rick said, I had goosebumps. I'm not sure that I actually breathed while listening to your speech. It was so moving, so powerful. And it was obviously a story that you're telling as a first person. I mean, any of these lines that was in your speech would be enough to complete its own speech. But you put them all together. From the very beginning, when you just came out and said, I am 16, I am Indigenous. It's like, look at me, listen to what I have to say. And then we just didn't stop from there. To the very end, when you say, no one asked to disappear. I mean, these are all simple, simple truths, but yet told in such a poignant way. Congratulations. This is a topic that most of us know about, but you're absolutely right. To do something about this once a year is not enough. We need to all do more.
Miigwech, thank you.
Nevaeh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, judges. Next up is Erica Lee.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica. I'm currently in grade 9 studying at St. Robert Catholic High School in Toronto, Ontario. I love being outdoors, whether it's skating, skiing, or snowboarding during the winter, and passing a frisbee, kicking a ball around, or biking in the summer sunshine. I love all things language, and that's why I decided to participate in Speaker's Idol. I want to be part of change, doing so by writing, speaking, and through the organization of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies is truly an honor and privilege. 1881. The Canadian Pacific Railway has begun its construction. A railway promising prosperity, booming economic growth, and a novelty to Canadian transportation just 4 short years away. 1885. The CPR has finally become a reality. Over 17,000 Chinese labor workers came to this country looking for a new life. Paid less than half their Caucasian counterparts, expected to provide double, one of them dies. Well, that's not Canada's problem. We've got a couple thousand more of them. 4 years. That is 1,461 interminable days of dangerous and harsh working conditions, withstanding illness and disease, severe malnutrition, no political or social rights, nowhere to leave, nowhere to contact their families, building the backbone of a country that was supposed to give you a new life. A country that was supposed to become yours, turning into the country, taking away any life you had. 17,000 people, and I cannot find one name, one grave, or one life. 2023. Canada is proud to have one of the world's highest functioning agricultural sectors. We have people to thank for that. Tens of thousands of people from the Caribbean countries and Mexico come here to work in this industry every year. Your sense of time becomes warped when being stuck into cramped spaces dense with an impermissible number of people during a global pandemic with no access to adequate permanent residency, subjected to wage theft, economic exploitation. Being a migrant worker means your visa conditions are contingent on your employer. Being alone in a foreign country without government protection means there's no one to look out for you. And in 2023, being a migrant worker doesn't seem to be part of being a human being. The people providing the most are once again receiving the least. Holocaust survivor, truth and justice seeker Simon Wiesenthal told the world, "I believe that there's no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and learn from it." The Chinese, who built a transcontinental railway almost 150 years ago. The people from the Caribbean countries who come here today, and now the 30,000 who built the Qatar World Cup Stadium, where millions of fans cheered and laughed, blissfully ignorant of the lives lost making the game possible. This is not only a Canadian issue, it is an international human rights violation. Yet you only see it on the news, read articles that get published, reporters only reporting after there's death. Someone having to die before we start caring is neither engaging with the past nor learning from it. Right now, we see solely the repetition of migrant workers being seen and treated as less of a human being than you and I, working harder than any of us, fearing, worrying about simply staying alive. Yet I have never understood why we validate where we are as an excuse to alter the perspective on who we are. What matters most is migrant workers knowing they have rights, us helping enforce them, learning and educating to break the cycle of repetition. As a citizen, we have that power to push for laws to make sure that basic human rights are met. Because right now, being aware of the past isn't enough. We need to engage to understand, and we need to understand to enable us to work to build a new narrative. 2023, a time to set a headstone for the past in its many repeating forms, to create a future of ubiquitous empathy for the next generation's present.
Erica, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for your presentation today. Let's go ahead and hear from Tony, followed by Matthew.
Erica, that was beautiful. I love that you put together what seemingly are 3 different groups of people. You know, the Chinese immigrants who came to work on the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1981. to the migrant agricultural workers, to the workers on the Qatar stadium, seemingly unrelated, yet all lacking basic human rights. It was brilliantly weaved together. And I loved your use of different pacing and different emotions. You were very calm and matter-of-factly when you were telling us the fact. And then you showed moments where you were excited because you were aghast at their lack of human rights. And the differentiation between that was very engaging for the audience. And I cannot believe that you're merely in grade 9. It's just incredible, the sophistication in which you spoke and the topics. I think is outstanding for grade 9 and for any high school student.
Thank you so much.
That was a really great presentation on both sides of the presentation, Colin. Your pacing, your control of your voice, your use of your whole body, your hands and your movement and your eyes. That was great. It's really a very high level of use of all your tools to deliver your message. And your message was really, again, so well put together. The quote I wrote down was, "The people providing the most are receiving the least." I mean, that sticks with me. That's going to stick with me. It was a really well put together presentation and performed really perfectly. So I can't imagine how hard you worked on it, but if you worked as hard as I think you did, it paid off. So congratulations and thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, judges. Our next speaker is Feha Kafi.
Hi, my name is Feha Kafi. I'm 14. I also attend the Surrey Academy of Innovative Learning, located in Surrey, BC. Some of my hobbies include teaching debate, which I actually really enjoy because of the fact it's taught me about many different issues that are quite pressing in today's society. So because of that, I decided to do my speech about prejudice, which is something that's affected my life since I was really small. So this is a great way for me to bring awareness to a topic like this. Let me ask you a question. Are you racist? But before you answer that, consider the fact the phrase, "I'm not racist," but has become a common phrase in our society. See, it's not just about those overt acts of discrimination, it's also about the subtle ways in which we view and interact with those who are different. When we understand that there's an issue with that, maybe we can understand the history where simple mistreatment and blatant inhumanity all stemmed from prejudice. See, I believe we should be going to someone who's been through the worst of prejudice to fully understand how to fix it. I believe there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. This is a quote from a Holocaust survivor, Simon Wiesenthal. He guides my words today as together we dive into the convolution of prejudice. His words guide me as we together learn about what happened, what will happen, and what we need to do. Prejudice is akin to a game of telephone. See, it starts with a simple message, but by the time it's reached the last person, it's been through a maze. That maze has twisted it, it's become harmful. We don't know what that means anymore. It doesn't resemble what it originally was. Take the land we stand on, North America. It started with a simple message, "I can join them," said European settlers coming in, seeing a new light, a new land. New communities were formed. I can help them. It became because they noticed Indigenous Canadians are different. They were different. And what happened with that? Well, that became, I can fix them, remove the Indian from the kid. What happened? It got lost in translation. We literally lost communities because of this. You see, that culture, that history, that humanity, the community was erased because of this issue. And yet, we don't learn about this properly in school. People don't want to learn. People don't know what happened. And yet we sit here and have the audacity to say, it's 2023, times have changed. They haven't. Yet we still have the audacity to relay this message from our mothers, sisters, fathers, brothers, sons, and daughters still say this as if it's true. But it's not. And until we understand that, we will not improve. See, to look at prejudice, we must learn about our mistakes. Those mistakes are problems, and those problems must be solved. But those problems, they don't simply stop at you being ignorant. Willful ignorance is a problem, yes. But you see, your jokes aren't funny. Those are part of the problem. Your jokes about how I speak too well for a black girl, those are part of the problem. See, your jokes about how you say Muslim are part of that same problem. And until you understand that, when will we improve? That's not something that will happen overnight with your ignorance, with your ignorance. We will not learn. And until you learn that we are doing something wrong, it will not improve. Ignorance is a bliss. We still say this, but is that really true? If that means not knowing the words that you convey can be harmful, does that mean that we appreciate, that we enjoy not understanding that you are part of the problem? To end prejudice, we have to learn to unlearn. Look back at what our ancestors did and look and understand. If we don't learn what they did, how will we understand how to improve? In the words of George Santana, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So why do we allow this to happen? I believe that there is no other solution than to constantly engage with the past and learn from it. Look between the lines, look at the bigger picture, and finally understand that we must educate to learn. Empathize, sympathize, and realize the problems that we have and learn how to overcome them. And finally, answer my question with truth. Are you racist?
Wow, we have got some phenomenal young speakers in this country, do we not? Feha, you are most definitely one of them. All right, time to turn to the judges. We're going to hear from Annemie, but first, Matthew.
I'm going to start. This is my last time speaking with everyone because I'm not going to be saying anything for the last speaker. I want to congratulate everybody. It is a remarkable crew this year. We've done our best to give comments, but our comments across the board would be spectacular. The effort and the work you all put into this and the outcomes are something everyone should be proud of. And I can't say it enough. Feya, that was a remarkable presentation. I don't know if you will take this as a compliment as I mean it to be. I sure hope you do. It didn't seem like you were giving a prepared speech. It seemed like you were talking about something that you were incredibly knowledgeable about and passionate about, that it was so natural and flowed so easily, it seemed, from a listening point of view, that I just wanted to keep listening to you because you were just conversing with me, giving me personally your view of something that was very important. And you did a perfect job of expressing how important it was with confidence and a command of the topic. I could go on. Your use of the word audacity was remarkable, as were so many parts of it. So keep doing what you're doing because that was an incredibly persuasive presentation. So good for you. Again, I hope you take it as a compliment that it seemed like you hadn't prepared, because that is a very, very high compliment.
I can echo that. That is a very, very high compliment. But yeah, that was wonderful. That was really spoken word in the finest tradition of spoken word. It felt intensely personal. It felt like you were throwing out a challenge to everyone that was listening, not just, again, with the content of what you were saying, but also with the way that you were saying it, with the pacing that you were saying it with your body movement, with your intonation. It was incredibly powerful and a very creative and original way of interpreting the assignment of interpreting this quote by Simon Wiesenthal. So congratulations on all of that. And it was great to have your introduction because I don't think anyone would have doubted in any case, but you could really feel how intensely personal the topic was to you and how much you wanted to communicate the meaningfulness of that to others. And also, as I said, throw out that challenge. So congratulations on all of that. And congratulations really on a really powerful and creative interpretation of the quote and the assignment. It was really fantastic.
Feha, would you like to respond? You can if you'd like. If we can hear you. Okay, unfortunately, we can't hear Feha. That was so good, though. We really appreciate you being part of Speakers Idol 2023. Our final speaker. I can't believe I'm saying this. I can listen to these young Canadians for the next few hours at least, but our final speaker in the secondary school category is Ren Sun.
Hey, my name is Ren Sun, and I am a grade 10 student at Earl March, which is located in Ottawa, Ontario. My hobbies include, debate. I run track. I love running track. I run long distance, especially 5 kilometers. I know I don't look like it, but I love running track. And then I also play piano. I've been playing for a while now, and I kind of like doing it, I guess. I also do mock trial, of course. Not of course, but I also do mock trial. Anyways, I participated. I joined Speakers Idol not because of some grandiose idea of like, whoa, I'm gonna change the world, which I would love to say I was, but I didn't. Our librarian put it onto the classroom, and when I saw it, it just piqued my interest because I wanted to improve my public speaking ability. And I saw the previous year's contestant's speech, right? And it was very similar to her spoken word poetry, and I thought she did it really, really, really well. So I wanted to join to see if I could be just as good as her. And yeah, that's me, Ren Sun. Honor, members of the jury, I am standing here today for the prosecution of the justice system of Canada. I intend to question its benevolence based on 2 prominent pieces of evidence: its capitalistic decadence and discriminatory preferences. Paul Batchelor, a 37-year-old Ottawa citizen, has won 7 acquittals in rape cases. How? His attorney and society. The purpose of a court is to protect the innocent and to condemn the guilty. Holocaust survivor Simon Wiesenthal spent his entire life to ensure this. But currently, a person's affluence, their influence can determine their innocence. The amount in their bank account can give them a discount on their penance. Justice is being bought by the highest bidder. It's being sold in an auction where the rich, the powerful, the corporations can rid themselves the title of sinners. Tell me, is this society truly just if the ones responsible are not held accountable? Look me in the eye and imply justice is a fundamental human right, when money is the reason why rapists can run free. 32% of incarcerated inmates are Indigenous, despite making up less than 5% of the population. And why? Why is that? Why does your credibility rely on your race? Why does your culpability depend on your sexuality, your gender, your faith? It's ludicrous that having a uterus can determine your attacker, your assaulter, your aggressor sentence, that the color of your skin, the culture of your kids can ascertain your sins. Does my accent dismay you? Do my traditions scare you? Why does a white man get sentenced to 5 months of repentance, but one of any other color gets a sentence for a lifetime of attendance? Innocents are being put behind bars while the guilty roam free. Tell me, is this the society we want our children to see? This bias creates a cycle of distress and devastation, victims unwilling to reach out, fearing punishment instead of salvation. Holocaust survivor Simon Wiesenthal once said, "I believe that the only solution is to constantly engage with the past and to learn from it. The past has shown us the unreliability of the system, the laws that legally declare the ban of religious wear. Now, is there any solution or only desolation to this violation of our fundamental human right? Discussion. Let the public see and understand, grasp the biases and bigotry of the system. Change only comes on the wings of knowledge. When you see the rotting planks, you'll replace them. We need to acknowledge them as rotten. If the blemishes of our history stays hidden, or flaws pronounced as strength, how could our wrongs ever be ridden? Your Honor, members of the jury, based on the presented evidence, for its emphasis on money and promotion of inequality, I ask you to find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Ren, so great. You were most definitely in the zone right there. Okay, our final comments will begin with NME, followed by Tony.
Thank you so much. And let me also say that this has been such a privilege to be with all of you today and really to hear some inspiring and challenging ideas and proposals from a generation that I have tremendous hope for, and who wouldn't after listening to all of you. So thank you so much for that. And this was a great way to end, because again, this is another fantastic example of how you can use pacing and spoken word and you know the peaks and valleys of your voice to really communicate a lot of passion for your subject. I don't think anyone would leave that presentation not unmoved and not convinced that you're someone that strives for justice, that sees the inequalities, that wants to do something about it, that wants to challenge other people to do something about them as well. And that is a very powerful thing, to be able to be persuasive like that. So I really want to congratulate you on that. Thank you also for the creativity that you brought to your presentation. You could really see it. The pacing was fantastic, and your passion really shone through.
Thank you, Ren, for this. I think every speech had its strength, and I think the strength of your speech is exactly like what Anime said. It's its creativity. You used a very unique and creative approach for how you delivered your speech. I like that you were the only one that I think I've ever seen to do this outdoors. And I love your intro video where you said you were just doing it because you were inspired by previous speakers. And I think it's also a great way to end today, because you guys all have been inspirational to us. And I think the reason that myself and Matthew keep coming back year after year to be the judges is because we are inspired, and we're in awe of you guys for putting in all this work, for sharing your thoughts, and for daring to challenge the status quo, to challenge our current judicial justice system like you have done. So I think this was outstanding conclusion to today's speeches. And thank you for all your efforts.
Well done, Ren. I could definitely second that, Tony, no doubt about it. Thank you to the Speakers Idol finalists. Weren't they all fabulous? So inspiring. Every year this program reminds me of how thoughtful young people are when it comes to discussing such difficult topics. Once again, we all are blown away with the incredible power of your words. You should each be so proud of yourselves for the time, for the effort that you put into your incredible speeches. I know that there are people watching today who have been inspired by your words, your passion. I know I am 100%. And while the judges take this time to finalize their marks, and this is the most challenging job that I believe Anime, Tony, and Matthew have now, coming up with the top ones, because they're all top in our minds, but they're going to put their marks together and they're going to get ready to announce the winners. I would like to introduce right now a very special musical guest who is joining us today. Please welcome Stacey K.
I was in the US. I was working with this record label at the time. The advice that they gave me was to lose 100 pounds, to change the color of my hair, and to sing love songs like Adele and just calm down. And I remember thinking, okay, my hair, my body, my personality, I was like, oh, so everything about me, okay. I didn't feel like myself, and it just was confusing because I didn't know who I was supposed to be. And then I come to Canada's Got Talent. I have this opportunity to be my full, authentic self this time, which is the best feeling ever. And 1, 2, 3, pose.
I am absolutely positive!
Backstage, what watching this, I would be seriously scared.
Stacey K, you're an amazing singer.
You just hit it out of the park on the biggest stage in the world. And it's 4 yeses. We'll see you again.
Hey everybody, my name is Stacey K, and I am so excited to be invited to be a part of your Speakers Idol finale, which I am so proud of all of you for. You are amazing. I am so inspired by your speeches. I know what it's like to be in a competition like this because I was the Golden Buzzer winner and finalist on Canada's Got Talent, also America's Got Talent. So I've got to sing for people like Simon Cowell and all these famous people, and I know it can be tough. But one thing that we have to remember is to be yourself, speak your mind, speak your truth, and that's what all of you are already doing. So I just want to say I'm so proud, and this one is for you. Here we go. I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, no one wants your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the sun. Yeah, that's what we become. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. We are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. Here we go. Stop, hold up, wait a second, I got something to say. I figured it out, now checking me out, you gotta get out of my way. I think I like the new me, I think I like how it feels. 'Cause for the first time in my life, I'm feeling something that's real. Something's growing, something's building inside. I'm about to bust out, about to show you my pride. Look at me, I'm a beast, so I wanna be making it, break it, and live it a legacy. Take it and pick up the fantasy, back of your magic, and back of the trickery. Ooh, ooh, yeah. Hey, hey. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flag, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. Marching on, marching on. Hey, this is me. Nothing's gonna bring me down. I swear I'm gonna drown them out. Yeah, this is me. Thank you so much, everybody. Good luck.
Stacey K, thank you so much for that outstanding performance. All right, the time has arrived. Please welcome our program sponsor, Evelyn Krakauer, and her son, Joel, to announce the results of Speakers Idol 2023. All right, Evelyn, there you go.
Thank you.
Hi. Before I announce the results of the competition today, my son Joel and I would like to take a moment to congratulate each and every one of the finalists. Regardless of the results today, you should be so proud of the incredible effort you each put into your speeches. You chose such important topics and really poured your hearts into delivering compelling messages. Keep raising your voices and speaking out about these important topics. None of us can change the world but ourselves. But by raising our voices and speaking out together, this is how we can create positive change in the world. All our finalists will receive Apple prizes. First place will receive a MacBook, second and third each an iPad, and fourth, fifth, and sixth place will each receive a $250 Apple gift card. Thank you to Ricky Brooks and Brooks Business Lawyers, Michelle Gleed Goldstein, and Tracy Graff for their contribution to these prizes. Now the results. Our judges have submitted their marks and they have been tallied. Keep in mind, the top 6 winners for Speakers Idol 2023 from the 2 grade categories were chosen out of 211 entries in total. Starting with the elementary panel, the results are as follows. In 6th place, Amara Lesanthan. 5th place, Carla Wu. 4th place, Vaishnavi Verma. Congratulations to all 3 of you, Amara, Carla, and Vaishnavi. You all did a wonderful job. And now for our top 3. Finishing 3rd, Evira Fernandez. In 2nd place, Kiva Doherty. And finishing 1st in the elementary panel of Speakers Idol 2023 is Isla Mason. Congratulations to Isla for finishing 1st and for Avira and Kiva with an amazing performance as well. And now the results for the secondary panel are as follows. In 6th place, Sonia Kovtun. 5th place, Feha Kafi. 4th place, Ren Ran Soon. Congratulations to all 3 of you, Sonia, Feha, and Ren Ran. You all did a great job. And now for our top 3, finishing 3rd, Erica Lee. In 2nd place, Clara Bertoldi. And finishing 1st in the secondary panel of Speakers Idol 2023 is Nevea Pine. Congratulations to Nevea for finishing 1st and for Erica and Clara with an amazing performance as well.
Evelyn, thank you so much. Joel, thank you so much. Wow. We want to thank you for your ongoing support, you and your family, to Speakers Idols. This brings Speakers Idol 2023 to a close for yet another year. We can dance if we want. We can celebrate if we want. What a beautiful day that was. Thank you to Michelle and Tracy and Ricky for your incredible role that you play in bringing Speakers Idol to life each and every year. Thank you to our wonderful judges who offered such great feedback. to each of the students. And most importantly, a very special thank you to the absolutely fantastic change makers who participated in this competition. Each and every one of you should be so proud of your accomplishment. And finally, thank you to each of you for tuning in to support these incredible students. We will see you next year at Speakers Idol 2024. Yes! Well done, guys.
We gon' celebrate and have a good time. It's time to come together. It's up to you. What's your pleasure? Everyone around the world, come on! It's a celebration. It's a celebration.
The first step is to know that we actually live in our mental world. We think that we can grasp the world, but we only grasp tiny bit. The James Bond rule says when we say a phrase that is going upwards, like life is great, it in the unconscious mind, it sends the message of doubt and uncertainty.
Welcome back to the Quick Brain Podcast. I am your host and your brain coach, Jim Quick. And the topic we're going to talk about today is one that we get a lot. I always talk about 10 different ways you could upgrade your brain, and one of them is managing your self-talk. I do believe your brain is like a supercomputer and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you're not likely to remember that person's name because you program your supercomputer not to. But we're going to go deep into quieting negative self-talk and maybe reframing it in a way that you could persuade and influence yourself to really not only learn better, but get the desired results in terms of your life that you really want and you deserve. And so we have a very special guest here live in the Quick Brain Podcast studio, Millie Vicario. She came all the way from Argentina for this conversation. So thank you so much. She's really an expert in mind technologies, and we're going to talk about some of those technologies today, and also really a notable biohacker. We were geeking out before we started filming about brain hacking and biohacking, and she does that, at scale. She's an author as well. So, Melanie, thanks for being on our show.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be today with you and this awesome community.
Yes. You really, I love your energy. From the moment we met, you connected with our team, with our Spanish-speaking audience for our social media. We'll put links in our show notes, always at jimquick.com/notes, as well as to your website, to your social media, to your book. I know you're running a biohacking event as well. You wear many different hats. You and I could talk for hours, but I wanted to really hone in on your experience with that inner voice. When we're talking about your inner voice, and sometimes people it's not just the words you say, but it's also how you say it. But before we do that, maybe you could give me just 2 minutes on your journey in terms of how were you first exposed? What was your inspiration? Were you just kind of born with these understandings, or did you go through a process?
This process has been so meaningful for me because I have been painfully shy, scared, and a lady that used to stutter. I could not even speak fluently in my own language, in Spanish, because I was so scared and anxious. And this happened not only when I was a child, but until I was around 30 years old, until I was fed up with this and decided to go look for my own resources, which I curiously find moving from Argentina to China. And I found a lot of resources in myself unconsciously that I could not explain, but I could use. So after that, I thought to myself, how can I make these processes learnable so that I can apply them every time I need them and program them in my own mental world? And how can I teach other people to use these powerful mental strategies so that everyone can actually create their desired life? And this is how I found Mind Technology, this user manual of our mental world, how to think on purpose. And then I learned biohacking, combined both of them.
Right.
And
so you have the hardware and the software. I know you trained with some amazing minds, brilliant minds like Richard Bandler. You were also a tech journalist, which you spent a good amount of time with CEOs and seeing what they were doing to create their companies and their teams, and innovate. And you were exposed to biohacking in Silicon Valley.
yes, exactly. I was, after learning mind technology and going to Stanford to learn neuroscience, I was looking for something really, really practical. And at that time, I was working as a technology journalist, and I knew a lot of very successful CEOs and entrepreneurs, managers of venture capitals. So I went to them and I said, look, I will ask you this. This is for my own personal investigation. What do you do to be so full of vitality, sharp, healthy? The way you connect with people is awesome. Like you create a meaningful relationship. What are you into? What do you do? And this was in 2017. And all of them said, look, Meli, I will tell you my secret. I'm into biohacking. And I was, wow, there is something here. They didn't know each other, most of them. This is how I thought there is something here. I went to San Francisco and I started looking for the biohacking community. And I went right away to the biohacking conference and signed up to learn from Dave Asprey directly.
This was in 2017?
Yes.
I spoke in Pasadena at that one. Every year, we've had Dave on the show multiple times. And so it's interesting because you're in Silicon Valley talking about technology, but the ultimate technology is between your ears. But you're right, it doesn't come with an owner's manual. So what I want to talk about in this episode is how to monitor and audit your self-talk so you could have conviction instead of uncertainty and doubt. How to be able to use that narrator in there to not squelch your dreams or create uncertainty, with your goals, but really to be able to move forward fast with confidence, right? So when you're working with a client and you're helping them through that, where do you normally start?
The first step is to know that we think that we live in the world, but we actually live in our mental world. We think that we can grasp the world, but we only grasp tiny bit, like generally 7 plus minus 2 chunks of information. So we unconsciously delete, distort, and generalize a lot of information. The quality of our life is actually the quality of our mental world. How bright it is in there, how much we can program this holographic mind in which we live. The thing is, we talk to ourselves when we come to this inner voice. Sometimes, and because we do this automatically and we are not taught this when we're kids, when we say something useful to ourselves, we say it with such doubt. Like, maybe I can make my dreams come true. And then when we say something that is bad to us, something that is not aligned with our desired destiny, we say it with such conviction, like, I am so stupid. There lies the problem. So there are some persuasion engineering tools that we can apply so that we can re-engineer this self-talk. And the first one I want to tell you is one of my favorite ones. It's the first time that I tell this in a podcast.
Okay.
So I'm very excited. And it's called the James Bond rule. The James Bond rule says when we say a phrase that is going upwards, like life is great, it in the unconscious mind, it sends the message of doubt and uncertainty. Then when we use a tonality going downwards, like life is wonderful or the pen is on the table, it sends a message to our unconscious mind of certainty and conviction. So let me explain this with an example. Everyone here probably knows about James Bond. You know who James Bond is.
007.
People in your home or wherever you're listening may thinking, yes, I know James Bond. So what do we think about him?
He's very confident. He's very certain. He's in control.
He's powerful. We believe in him. We trust him. We could even put our lives in his hands to defend us, right? And how did he introduce himself?
Bond. James Bond.
Yes. And you are all probably thinking about this or saying this in your homes,
Quick,
right?
James, quick.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
And the downward inflection.
With the downward inflection. Imagine for a moment if he would have introduced
Upward
himself
inflection.
like this. My name is Bond. James Bond.
Feels different.
It feels different. It's the same words, but it feels as suddenly we maybe are not certain. We don't think he's that strong anymore. So how can we use the James Bond rule when we talk to ourselves, when we say something that is good for ourselves, like, I am wonderful. I will make my dreams come true. You do it with the downward inflection, like James Bond. And also, this works both for our inner voice and for our outer voice when we talk to other people. It is very important because think about how you're introducing yourself and what you do for a living, for example. It is not the same to say, my name is Maria, I'm a biohacker, I will teach you great things for the future. Then in the unconscious mind, people listening this, it's doubt. I'm not certain about this.
Right.
But then if we change, my name is Maria. I am a biohacker. I will teach you wonderful things for the future. Then, or actually when you're giving hope to someone else and you tell them, everything is going to be all right. Life is good, life is wonderful. With the downward inflection, the message in our unconscious mind, that is what is running the whole show, it is, yes, certain, I believe this, I trust this. So it's such a powerful way to talk to ourselves and to other people.
Right. And it's interesting because when we're talking to people, we know this unconsciously. If I'm coaching somebody and getting them to read each day, and they say, I can read, like it's not, or I will read, right? It feels different. I can do it, right? Or I can, and it sounds different. So you're saying it's not only what we say, but it's how we say it to ourselves and to others.
Absolutely. And this is how we come to the second rule that I love sharing. These are really, really powerful that we can start using right now. The round voice rule.
Round voice rule. Do you have too much to read, but too little time? Are your shelves full of books that you haven't read yet and become shelf help, not self-help? And that's why I created the Quick Reading course. 15 minutes a day, 21 days will absolutely transform your life. Just go to quickbrain.com/reading. Use the code podcast15 and you'll get instant access.
A rule that says when we talk with a round voice, that is the voice that comes from our diaphragm. So when we are speaking, we take the air to our diaphragm and we talk like this and we say, relax, trust, soft. This kind of voice opens a door to our unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is listening when we use this kind of voice, even our inner voice, both our inner voice and outer voice, versus if we say, relax, now, trust, very well. Like this is like the opposite of a round voice. This is what we call a spiky voice. And of course, I'm going to the extremes here, but most of us, generally, people are somewhere in the middle. And if we can make our voice more round when we talk to ourselves and to others, we can talk more effectively to the other people's unconscious mind and also to our unconscious mind that is powerful and subtle. So, how do we get our voice to be more round? You can download any free app that is called Oscilloscope. And then you talk to the oscilloscope and you say like simple words like relax, soft, hello. And you will try to see in the oscilloscope something round. You talk through here and you say round. Whereas if you are using a spiky voice, you will see actual spikes in the oscilloscope. So you will practice and you will get the feedback from the app, the oscilloscope, to make your voice more round, more from the diaphragm. And then what you're learning there, to use it in your everyday life. Even imaginary voice, it works the same. Our own unconscious mind wants to listen to ourselves when we talk with a round voice.
That makes so much sense. And I really want to highlight this because we all have this internal voice inside our head. When have we did an audit, not only what we say, because we hear a lot of people say, well, talk positive to yourself, use these kind of affirmations. But if you're doing these affirmations with that upwards inflection, then you're saying something that you don't believe. Right? Even if we heard it from another person that they say that they're going to exercise every day, but it's different if they're asking it or if they're commanding themselves to be able to do that. Now, I didn't want to finish this conversation without talking a little bit about some biohacking, because for me, you could have the processes and the software of the self-talk as an example, but also you need to take care of the hardware, which is your body, and part of your body is your brain. Maybe you could share with our audience maybe 3 of just kind of your non-negotiables when it comes to biohacking. Are there certain things that, I know you're traveling right now, so maybe not everything is doable, but how do you remain in your potential and your purpose in terms of biohacking? How do you maintain your strength and a level of vitality when you're going through your day?
The first one is removing all these toxic things that a lot of people is putting in the skin, like not putting any crap, with the permission of the word,
right,
in my hair, in my skin. Actually, it was a big process to say to myself, I'm beautiful like this. I don't need to be smudging toxic chemicals and toxic makeup in my skin to be beautiful.
Because your skin is your largest organ, and it absorbs things. And they say that women specifically could walk out of their house in the morning with over 200 chemicals on their body.
And thinking about how, but I have to be pretty, my skin has to be all like a painting or something like this. And to really think, no, this health is beautiful, vitality is beautiful. It was an internal process for me to say the natural is beautiful.
So saying reducing or eliminating those potential toxins that could affect your mind and your body.
Yes, exactly. Like we read the labels of the food, read the labels of the shampoo, the toothpaste, the cream, everything that we put in our skin.
Okay.
Exactly as you said. The second one is something that I learned a few months ago, I have to say. I didn't pay attention to this. I didn't know this before, and it's been so powerful. And it is, as a woman, to respect the menstrual cycle phases, to know that I am not the same person in each phase of my menstrual cycle, and that it is okay to feel different and to do as much as possible to adapt my training and my activities and my food to these different phases, that we as women are different biologically, and there is a great power to do as much as possible to adapt to this menstrual cycle. And this is something maybe some 1 year ago or something I wouldn't have said, oh no, today I'm gonna take it very easy because I'm in the premenstrual cycle. I would know, oh, this is a secret. This is something that I should not say out loud because I'm even a little like embarrassed to say, no, I should not talk about this. And now it's okay. It's part of my power too.
We've done a couple episodes on this where everyone's familiar with the 24-hour cycle or circadian rhythm, but the 28-day cycle also. We had Lisa Vitti talk about it, and also Dr. Stephanie Estima talk about that each week, it could also, depending on your hormonal expression, you could take on certain activities that would be aligned in nature. I'll put a link again to those podcast episodes. And your third one that you're thinking about right now, and I know we could probably do 30 of them.
Jim, this is like I sigh of joy just to think about this, and is to connect with the vitamin people, the community, to be able to learn from vitamin people, hug vitamin people, help each other, put some hope in someone else's eye, make someone smile, and get together in community. And this is why it is such a dream come true that the first biohacking conference in Spanish is coming to life so soon. This is the way that the Spanish-speaking community can get together and make sense of all this knowledge in our language, create the new neural networks, hug, make community, help each other.
Yeah.
Actually, Jim, like connecting with you and learning from you virtually before and now in person, I can feel the connection with the vitamin people that you are.
Melly, this has been amazing. I want to make sure everybody has a takeaway here. Our internal voice is very powerful, and probably more powerful than we think. If we understood how powerful our words are in the language, to our own mind or our unconscious, we probably wouldn't say or think something we didn't want to be true. And it's that powerful. Not that you have one negative thought and ruins your life any more than just eating one donut will ruin your life, but it's the consistency of it. But, what I really want to emphasize here from what you've shared is not just what you say, it's how you say it, to yourself. Just simple distinctions. I think little things make a big difference. And I want to thank you for sharing those two strategies as well as some of your biohacking tips. And those biohacking tips are free, right? You're doing less of the toxic chemicals or the toxic people, or the toxic news, and then also you're very conscious of your own rhythms, biologically. And then also, just being very conscious also of the power of community. It's not just our neurological networks. It's obviously our social networks, because who we spend time with is who we become. So I want to thank you for spending time with us today. How do people stay in touch with you?
First, thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to say this publicly. You are a huge inspiration for me. Being from very small town, from very far away, listening to you and learning from you allowed me to have huge dreams in my mental world, huge dreams in my timeline, and knowing that I can make them true for me and for the world, whatever it takes. So thank you so much for the inspiration. You inspire me, you inspire so many people. How to stay connected? Well, you can connect with me by Instagram, is at La Biohacker. This is how people know me, like La is de in Spanish for feminine, La Biohacker. I have a website, www.labiohacker.com. I have a YouTube channel where I have an interview that I did to you 5 years ago, and it's with Spanish subtitles, and it's amazing. Well, that's it. Oh, actually, I started making biohacking music. That is with the round voice, with the intonations, and you can find this music in Spotify. There's one about our unconscious mind and one about biohacking. And it's in Spotify and all the musical platforms as Soy Tan Biohacker.
Perfect. I want to thank everybody for listening or watching this episode. Make sure you go to jimquick.com/notes to get all the amazing resources, because it's not just the external resources we talked about today, the internal resources and resourcefulness that we all have inside of us. So we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, this is your brain coach, Jim Quick. Be limitless.
So our imagination, and Seneca said it best, we suffer twice. One in reality and one in imagination. Right? We suffer twice. What you're now doing is you're creating a story of what's going to happen. And that story...
You talked about the fear of fear and how you had to learn to let go of your fear of fear. What does that actually mean, letting go of the fear of fear?
Yeah. So I talk about how we fear the wrong things.
What do we fear?
So most of us are fearful of how our friends are reacting, what's happening on social media, and what's the random bit of news that we heard. None of it is fact-based. That's one of the biggest issues that we have.
Worry-based.
It's worry-based, and it's also imagination-based. So we become fiction writers. We've all watched too many movies. Now we start writing these beautiful movies in our head. Well, not beautiful, scary movies in our head of what may happen. So our imagination, and Seneca said it best, we suffer twice. One in reality and one in imagination, right? We suffer twice. And this is the
what
biggest...
actually happens to us,
totally.
And then the story we continue to tell ourselves.
Totally. Now there's this incredible study in the book that I have to talk about. So they took monks and they took non-monks and they
competed against each other.
They competed against each other, literally. So they put this plate where you experience heat. And so what happens is the non-monks touch this plate. Now this plate heats up gradually, softly, and then at one point it gets really hot for 10 seconds and then it cools down. And so what happened is that when the non-monks touched it, the anxiety and pressure and stress in their brain just triggered straight away, even though it wasn't that hot.
It wasn't hot.
It was heating, but it wasn't hot to do anything major to you. But the anxiety and stress in imagination or in anticipation went through the roof in the non-monks. Now this is what's fascinating. When the monks touched it, they showed that it didn't feel anything as it rose, but as it got to its highest, they felt physical pain, but they showed no trigger of emotional pain because they did not assign any emotional element to that pain. So my point with that is, you can look at the news right now and you can get scared straight away and get in complete freeze mode, feeling stuck, paralyzed, whatever it is, because what you're now doing is you're creating a story of what's going to happen. And that story...
And you can cause sickness in yourself.
You can cause sickness
just by the
inside
story,
yourself.
not actually...
The reality.
The facts of the disease hitting you or something happening physically to you.
Totally. And that story, again, can be used positively. So your story may actually be true. But if it's going to be true, now you can prepare. And that shifts you away from being scared because now you're preparing. And so the real
You can be confident because you prepared.
Exactly. And so we should be shifting our fear energy into preparation energy. Because what fear does is it keeps you locked there, right? We just feel stuck. I'll give you an example. Like when you were preparing for big games, when you used to play in the NFL, right? And you're playing American football against some of the biggest athletes in the world, it's like you can either sit there and be scared that you're going to play this game on the weekend, or you can prepare. And your confidence is in the preparation. So when people go, how do I feel confident right now? Are you preparing?
Are you putting the reps?
Are you putting the reps? Are you building your immunity? Are you taking your vitamins? Are you
drinking lots of water?
Are you drinking lots of water? Are you taking the steps that are needed to prepare for whatever's coming? You will feel more confident that way.
Yeah. So how do we learn to let go of the fear of fear, though? Like, how do we say, okay, we're only going to allow it to hurt us when it actually hurts us and not the fear of it? Is there a process? Is there just an awareness of this, that when you're in anxiety, worry, stress, fear, you just breathe and meditate? Then what's the process of letting go of the fear of fear?
Yeah, so meditation and mindfulness are powerful tools, but I'd say the process, and I want to be as tactical and strategic as we can. The thing is to get really close to that fear. So what we usually do is embrace it, get close to it, get intimate with it. We
become the bat. Sit in the bat cave.
Literally, yeah.
And embrace the fear.
Totally.
Yeah.
We run away from fear. We like to run away and go, oh, it's not coming with me. Or what we do is we hear one thing and we define the whole understanding of our fear based on that one thing.
Yes.
So it's like someone, and I'll give you a normal example in a normal life scenario.
Yes.
Someone says to you in the office, you know that they're going to cut a few people. And you don't even check. You don't even know.
Is it real?
And now you just made it real, and now you're running with it, and you're trying to run away from it. So you're trying to avoid conversations with your boss. You're trying to avoid any conflict. You're trying to, you're just trying to avoid it. And so actually what you need to do is go, okay, let me actually discover that fear. Let me go intimate with that fear. Let me ask myself, where's that fear coming from? What am I really scared of? What am I really scared of? Am I really scared of losing my job? Am I scared of not having any money? What am I really scared of? And when you get to the root, and I call it the why ladder in the book. So it's asking yourself, what am I scared of? And then go, why am I scared of this? Why am I scared of this? Why am I scared of this? And when you can't ask why any longer, you've got to the answer, and that's what you have to deal with. Most of us are not dealing with what we're actually scared of. So that's how you let go. You let go by keep asking yourself. So I'll give you an example of mine. Like if I heard that, or if you hear that in your office that people are getting cut, it's like, you just get scared and panicked. But the question is, why am I scared of that? Am I scared of that because I haven't been working hard for 6 months? Am I scared of that because I've been skipping meetings? Am I scared of that because I know my boss will probably fire me first? Or am I scared because I've been performing really well and I'm expecting a promotion? Knowing which one it is sets you up to build the path forward. Not knowing that just puts you in this panic frenzy.
I think also like doing all the things you talked about, which is discovering within yourself, being aware of it, but then also just have the conversation.
100%.
Confront it with your manager, your boss, and say, hey, listen, I heard some rumors that there might be some cuts, and I want to let you know that I'm 100% committed to doing whatever it takes to help this company grow.
Yes, 100%.
I believe in this mission more than anything. Here's what I've been doing the last 3 months, and here's what I want to continue to do. Is there anything else I can do?
Totally.
Like show them why you shouldn't get cut.
Exactly, and that's, you know how to approach that discussion when you know which side you're on, what your fear is.
I remember as a freshman playing football, I was playing Division II football in Minnesota. They usually redshirt all the freshmen. And I went into this with a big ego, thinking like, I'm gonna start, or at least I wanna play, right? So I went into it with an ego in the first place. But I also, which wasn't good, but I also went into it with some things that were good from this conversation. I told the coach straight up, like, I know you don't play freshmen, but my intention is to play. What is it gonna take for me in order to get on the field? Do I need to get here early? Do I need to stay late? Can I sit here in the office with you after before practice and go over game film? Whatever it was. And he told me, I need you to come in the office every single day and watch game film with me. I need to be with your receiver coach every single day beforehand and doing reps. And I just did it. And I eventually started to play my freshman year. I didn't start in the beginning, but I started to start at the end. And that for me was powerful. It's like I dressed in it because I wanted to play and I was afraid I wasn't going to play at all. And just waste a year of practicing like every other freshman would do there. That was my ego going in, like amazing. I need to play. But I was also like, I'll do whatever it takes and I'll practice and I'll confront it with conversation and say, this is my intention, this is my vision, and I'm going to do whatever it takes for you. And so I think that
that's a perfect example.
Yeah, if you're in a workplace, you've got to be confronting it and be proactive in your conversation.
Correct, and that's a perfect example of getting close to fear rather than running away from it.
Exactly.
Spot on, man.
For me, my whole mission in the last year and moving forward, the next projects I'm working on are all about belief in yourself. I believe self-doubt is the killer of dreams. And I believe that, and you have this amazing graph in here, it's about ego versus self-esteem. How do we build self-belief, self-esteem, self-confidence while also not allowing our ego to be so big and think we can just do anything? How do we balance ego and self-confidence so they don't hurt each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we experience most of the time is extremes. Yes. So the two extremes that most of us experience are either I have to think I'm the best, I'm the best in the world, I can crush anyone, like I'm like gonna show everyone what I'm like, or most of us experience the other extreme, which is I'm the worst. I'm the stupidest, I'm the dumbest, I'm the most worthless, I'm the biggest loser. Notice how that's both ego.
Really?
Yes.
Why is the negative
so
ego?
The ego wants to be the best of the best, or the ego wants to be the worst of the worst. The ego won't accept being in the middle.
Really?
The ego wants to feel the deepest sense of being the lowest. And that's why victim mentality is actually a subsequence of ego.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, because the point is that you can't deal with just being bad. you have to be the worst.
My pain is the worst. I
Exactly.
think Jada talked about this
Yes.
on your podcast, where she was like, you know, I had to tell people why my hurt was more painful than their hurt, and they could never understand how bad it was. Right?
Exactly.
That's ego
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
ego as well. So you see these two sides of ego keeping us locked away. And so the only way to get with that, and the only way to balance it and bring it all into one, is genuine self-honesty. Honesty is the best place to be. And the best thing about honesty is, I'm really good at this, I'm really average at that, and I'm really bad at that. And the challenge we have with that is most of us have no idea. We just have zero self-awareness about what we are good at, what we are bad at, and what we're average at. So we think, I'm pretty average at everything. I'm pretty good at everything. And when I hear those answers, I'm like, simple things. Just go and talk to people that know you.
Yeah, what am I great at?
Ask them, what's my superpower? What do I do differently? What do you think I do that is different that no one else does? And guess what? I guarantee you, if you ask a colleague, if you ask a friend, if you ask a family member, if you ask people
say
from
different things
they'll
too.
say
Yeah.
different things. But you get to learn about yourself. So real confidence comes from knowing your strengths and going all in on them. Your confidence does not come from just standing up the right way or just saying the right stuff to yourself.
Body language only,
And that's important. I'm a big believer in all of that, but what I'm saying is that doesn't build real confidence. Real confidence comes from thinking, I'm really good at this, I know I can do this, and I love doing it. And really, this is the most important bit. Confidence comes from serving other people. When you see the impact you have on others, and this is the biggest issue, the reason why we have such low self-esteem today in the world is because people are not serving others. So they don't see the profound impact they have on others. When you put out a video or a podcast and people tag you on Instagram and they say, Lewis, you stopped me from depression, or you helped me out of a divorce. Or people, when they watch my content, they'll be like, that stopped me from committing suicide, or whatever it is. When you see that, you get such a deep sense of self-worth that you matter. And guess what? Everyone matters. Whether you matter to 1 people or 1 million people, everyone matters. But if you see your impact on someone's life, you will feel such a deep sense of self-worth. And so whether you're serving at a, giving out free food, or whether you're serving at a local charity place, or whether you're serving through your work, serve, because when you take that step, you get a boost of self-esteem.
But why do so many of us live in fear and desire mode as opposed to duty and love mode? Why is that? Like, why are we still focused on self as opposed to service?
It's conditioned. It's conditioned, right? I've said this before, that we're wired for generosity, but we're educated for greed. I think I just said it to you 2 years ago when I was on the podcast. And it's like, and when I said that in the statement, it was, and it's so true. We're wired for generosity, but we're educated for greed, because what happens is when we're kids, you'll see kids
You want to
serve,
share.
go out their way, they want to share.
It's part of my candy bar, whatever,
Totally,
right?
Yeah. And then as we get older, we're told that there's less. And this is what the key is. As we get older, we're told there are finite numbers of how many kids get made onto the basketball or baseball team.
Yes.
We're told there's
We're
a
limited.
finite number of college spaces. We're told there's a finite number of how many tickets there are. We're told there's a finite number of people that are successful. Guess what? In the theater of happiness, there are infinite and unlimited seats. And there is a seat with your name on it.
That's so good.
There is a seat with your name on it in the theater of dreams, in the theater of happiness. But you think that because you think that there are only 100 people allowed in, that if someone else makes it before you, that you don't get in. And guess what? Is there a cap on how many billionaires there are in the world?
No.
No. Is there a cap on how many millionaires there are in the world? No. Is there a cap on how many happy people there are in the world? No. And that's why I really am encouraging Forbes. I want Forbes, forget printing a rich list, print a happy list, print a service list, print a list of who is
We should
serving.
do that. We should do
who
that.
is serving the most in the world.
Wow.
Right,
That'll be competition based.
Yeah, sure.
I gave more than you gave.
Yeah, and that's why it should be service based on time, energy, and money. Because we should start showing how much time people give, how much energy people give. Mother Teresa, I don't think she gave any money to her charities.
Right.
But she gave a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
You know, you look at all the people who made a change in the world, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, like, they may not have given a lot of money to stuff.
Yeah,
They gave time and energy.
You don't have to give resources, but your resourcefulness, your love, your
Love
time,
that.
your focus, your attention, your compassion.
Love that.
You know,
Yeah.
resourcewulness of the heart, not of the wallet, I think is
Love
key.
that.
And you don't need to have a lot of money to make a big impact.
You don't. There's and this is the training. See, we've been educated for greed because we've been told everything's limited. there's limited number of this, limited number of this, number. And every time you play in numbers, and I think it was Bob Marley who said it, but every time you play in numbers, you'd always be dissatisfied because guess what?
Someone's always got more.
Someone's always going to have more. I was speaking to a friend recently, and this friend was telling me that he, bought a home, which is very expensive.
Yes.
Very, very expensive. And he went to a party at someone else's house. And he told me that when he was getting a tour of this party, he found out that this person had a painting on his wall which cost the amount his house cost. And so he was joking with me. He was like, that guy's painting
in the house.
He's got my house on his wall.
Wow.
And that just puts things into perspective. And you think about that, like, and then you look at someone like Jeff Bezos and you think, oh, well, he's the richest man in the world, but does he have the most fame? No, he doesn't.
Right.
Does he have the most beauty? Subjective decision. Does he have the most strength or power? Maybe not. And so no one has the most of everything. So when you measure yourself by numbers, you'll always be second, third, fourth, fifth in something.
And I think by measuring yourself by needing to have the most of anything is probably a recipe for unhappiness. Of like, well, okay, I'm not gonna have the most of anything, but I'm gonna have the most money. You're still gonna be unhappy.
Totally.
Even if you have the most of something, doesn't mean you're gonna be happy.
Totally. I think it was Albert Einstein who said it best, that not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. And I love that because it removes this belief that things are finite and limited, and they're not. If you want to be happy and successful, no matter that there are 700,000 podcasts, if that is your dharma, if that's your calling, if that's your purpose, like, you can do that. There's no cap on how many successful soccer players that can exist at the same time.
Or how many books are out in the world.
There's no cap. There's no one stopping you, and that's the mindset that we're educated.
So can you share what that means to hear in between the lines through prayer, meditation, mindfulness, and kind of what this all means? How can we understand this? There's a lot of noise about it, but what does it really mean?
Yeah. Beautiful. First of all, I'm glad to be back, man. The School of Greatness is
excited, man.
A special place. And the fact that so everyone who's listening or watching, this is how you test whether your friend really knows you. Lewis just told my life story in 30 seconds, which means that we're real friends. Lewis was able to summarize everything that I've been through in the last 10 years in 30 seconds. So I appreciate you, man.
Of course, man.
And I'm really happy to be back. And yeah, I think, let's talk about the term and let's talk about that specific answer. So when I hear the word mindfulness, to me, what it really means is intentionality. What I mean by that is, are you crafting, designing, and intentionally creating your life? Or are you just coasting in the passenger seat of your life, which is just dragging you and driving you wherever it's taking you? And so it's the difference between being the driver or being in the passenger seat. And so to me, living intentionally is what allows you to live a life of by design. And so I'll give you an example of what mindfulness can look like. There's something in the book that I talk about called the 3 S's, which are sights, sense, and sounds. Now, if you think about that, we're exposed to sights, sense, and sounds every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. But how many of us have crafted those to be sights, sense, and sounds that we want in our life? So this is what I realized. When we were monks, one of the most important things was, what was the first thing you saw, the sight, when you woke up?
And right now, most people are probably seeing their screen.
Yeah, I think 80% of people look at their screens first thing in the morning and the last thing at the night. So you're seeing your screen first thing in the morning. But what are you really seeing? You're seeing everyone else's priorities. You're seeing everyone else's issues and challenges. You're seeing everyone else's messages to you, which means you're already starting your day off reactively. But what if you started your morning looking at a painting that inspired you, or a picture of a loved one that brought joy in your heart, or your favorite quote by Lewis or by anyone else that when you read that in the morning, you were like, oh yeah, I feel in charge today to make a difference in the world. So imagine the first thing you saw in the morning was something inspiring. How much would your day change? That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is being intentional and mindful about what you are exposing yourself to. Let's talk about sounds next. So sounds was something that I started to study actually much later from a modern life perspective. But when we were monks, we would wake up to birds, we would wake up to water, we'd wake up to gongs or cymbals. Chants, exactly, which are all beautiful sounds. Now, the crazy thing is all of us wake up to something called an alarm.
No,
right, just like
literally, I don't know why anyone would want to wake up
Alarmed.
to an alarm. Why would you want to wake up alarmed? It means now your system is alarming. Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to wake up in shock, in a state of like a jolt? I don't think that's a positive way to wake up. So changing the sound that you wake up to. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can wake up to nature sounds. Maybe you're one of those people who just hit the snooze button again. But what if you woke up to a sound or a song that brought you joy? Now, when I lived in New York for 2 years, between 2016 and 2018, I started to feel quite exhausted by the end of the day. And I was really looking into like, why is it that I feel tired? And I started to realize I came across this term called cognitive load. And what it means is that a lot of the sounds that you hear in New York City are sounds that are insignificant for your mind to process. Drilling, construction work, taxis honking, driving, cars screeching, scratching.
people yelling at each other in the
People
streets.
yelling at each other on the streets. Like, all of that sound is called cognitive load, where your brain is now trying to make sense of meaningless sound.
Or it's also just like, should I be afraid? This is a loud sound. Is my brain going to fight or flight? Like, I need to protect myself. So you're always being alarmed.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear sirens.
I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Show me your morning routine and I'll show you your future. That's right. I believe the way you start your day has a direct impact on the success of your business, your finances, your relationships, and of course, your wellness and mental health. So today, I'm inviting you to join me in my latest upcoming free webinar, The 5 Secrets to the Ultimate Morning Routine. If you want to stop getting tripped up with procrastination, holding on to old fears and self-doubt, and start multiplying your income and impact, then this one is for you. It is possible to break out of the routines that aren't serving you and live more peaceful and purposeful days in the future. But first, you need to commit to taking action and showing up to the webinar. So join me, join Team Greatness in our amazing community, and click the link to sign up right now.
Now, when you hear sirens, sirens have an emotional trigger and they have an emotional response to them. So think about your day. Think about when you come home from work. Well, now you're working from home.
Right.
What sound do you want to hear when you're working? What sound do you want to hear at the end of the day? When you sound design your life, that's called mindfulness. That's being intentional. Yes. And then finally, scent. Scent is such a powerful sense that we're not even aware. How many of you, when you smell your favorite food, can't already wait to eat it? Like, you can almost taste it.
Salivating.
You're salivating. You can taste it already just through scent. Why is it that every time you walk into my favorite, I think pizza has one of the best scents.
Well, your wife Rowdy's got some amazing food. That was amazing scent. When I walked in the kitchen last week, I was like, this is amazing.
That was for you. That was special. That was for you. That was for you. That was a good meal. That was a really good meal. She really appreciated that you love to eat too. Like, she was happy. Her heart was full.
Exactly. Bring a former jock into your house and you'll clear all the food out.
She was like, I've never seen someone eat that much. And I was like, he's this like big American dude. I was like, Lewis is like, he can eat. And so, no, it was great. She was so happy that you appreciated it so much. She really appreciated that.
But the scent is important in your life.
When you walk into a massage spa, it's the scent, the eucalyptus, the lavender, the sandalwood. It
puts you in a peaceful state.
Dude, scent puts you in zen without trying. And so mindfulness is intentionally creating a life that makes you feel what you want to feel without having to just create the feeling from inside. You may say, Jay, I really struggle trying to be positive. I struggle trying to deal with anxiety. I struggle trying to be focused. Your sight, sense, and sounds can help you do that.
Yeah.
And you start creating an environment where you naturally feel that. Like today when I walked into your studio, I saw your books, I saw all these motivational quotes, I saw a boxing glove, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in a uplifting environment, right? So you already get triggered.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a friend of mine mentioned one time on the podcast, Chris Lee said you want to create an environment like a rainforest where things can thrive and grow, as opposed to having an environment like a desert where things go to die.
That's beautiful.
And if you have sights, scents, and sounds that are like a desert for your life or your heart, then it's going to be hard to grow those things from your heart. But if you create an environment of a rainforest where things can grow, water, nature, cool air, things like that, then you can really start to cultivate that growth.
Yeah.
You mentioned about creating and designing your life. How much of the world do you think we receive by being here? And how much of the world do we create ourselves?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. It's a complete dynamic dance between what the Vedic tradition would call fate and free will. So fate is what is already created for you, and a good example would be the place you were born, the type of family you grew up in, the socioeconomic background you had. It was already there when you walked into the world. But within that, you had choices where your free will came about. You had the choice to either do what everyone in your neighborhood did or to do something different. You had the choice to have a relationship with a particular person or not. So what happens is that we're constantly creating new spaces from which we have another choice.
Right.
And so you kind of see it as this dynamic dance between, okay, now I'm in this situation, and now what is my choice in this situation? So I would say, I'm not saying it's equal, I'm saying it's a dynamic balance and a switching process where you're constantly creating a new level, and then now in that level you have a next choice.
Because we didn't have the choice to be created here. We were here, and that wasn't our choice. Now everything after that is our choice, right?
Yeah, and there are some traditions, and I'm a big diver into like reincarnation and past lives. So according to the beliefs of reincarnation or past lives, you have at some point made a choice to be here. But taking it more simplistically, the truth is that when you're brought into a situation, it's the best analogy that I've heard, and it's been told for years, is of a father is an alcoholic. One of the sons that he has decides to become an alcoholic because his father's an alcoholic. The other son decides to never drink alcohol because his father's an alcoholic.
Right.
So they were exposed to the same situation and same scenario. Same environment. But they both made different choices based on their experience. And that's the choice element. That's the element that we should be trying to empower in our lives, because we can constantly say, I'm limited by my environment, or I've been restricted by my environment. And hey, it's true. There are so many of us that have been limited and restricted. But by now you repeating that, you are going to repeat that restriction in your life.
How much of a positive environment supports us in our growth or holds us back? There are some people who have the perfect family situation, resources, beautiful backyards and nature, who are lazy. And there are others who have, divorced parents, abusive parents, abusive friends, an environment of a desert, and they figure out a way to thrive.
Totally.
How much importance does our environment play in our overall success?
If you look at the examples that you just shared and you really analyze life, you'd see very little, because you see people craft their own life. So a good example for me is that when I came back from living in the ashram, and there were other people who may have been monks who'd also left the path, and I came back to a not financially successful or supportive family. So my family doesn't have abundant wealth and couldn't necessarily have taken care of me or paid for me forever. And I had to figure out my own life. And that to me was a great sense of impetus and incentive to go and figure it out and learn new skills and network and meet people. And I saw other friends whose parents had like a property portfolio with like 10 properties ready to hand them over. They had a BMW the second that they came out, whatever, from their own life. Or I even have friends that had all of that and didn't become monks and didn't even find careers. So I've also got friends that I went to school with that today don't even have careers, even though their parents were really well established. Which has, all of these examples have continued me to believe that we truly have influence in more than our environment. Our environment affects us for sure. It plants seeds and weeds into our life, but there is still a choice. And I think even if you feel there isn't a choice, simply by accepting that there is, it means you have a chance to get out of there. And I think that's what...
Because if you don't accept that there is, then you're just going to stay stuck.
Correct. Like, there've been so many times in my life, and there's a beautiful quote from Edison. I don't think I said this last time, but if I did, it's worth repeating. He said that when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And the reason why I love that is your mind continuously feels stuck when it's tried the obvious. And that's why a lot of creativity and focus studies say that the first 10 ideas that come to your mind are never the most interesting. It's when you get into the 11th idea that you start breaking the pattern. And so if someone asks you, oh, what's your best business idea? Your first 10 ideas are probably not that innovative. And so the mind constantly gets stuck on that train, and you've got to keep reminding yourself that there is another door. There could be another pathway. I was thinking about a piece of advice so one of my closest spiritual mentors, who was in London, I knew him since I was probably like 12 and properly went since I was 18. He passed away this year from stage 4 brain cancer. And he'd had brain cancer for about, I think like 4 years now. And so I hadn't really had a real interaction with him for the past few years because every time I saw him, he wasn't fully functioning in his short-term memory. His long-term memory was there, but his short-term memory wasn't. And I remember speaking to him probably about 7-8 years ago and asking him the question. I said to him, I've got so many ideas. There's so many things I could do. Where do I start? And he said this beautiful thing to me. He said, you know what? Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. And what I realized is most of us are just not opening up enough doors because we think we only have the option of 2 doors. We look at life as binary, 0 and 1, 0 and 1, right? It's just
this
A
or that,
or B, this or that. And I mean, I think you'd say this too about you and every guest you've ever had on. I don't think life is ever this or that. It's like this, that, and maybe that, and that. And there's always a gap.
Of course. The challenge that people have that I've sensed a lot is the fear of criticism when you go after something that you weren't supposed to do or that people don't think you're supposed to do. Why do so many people fear criticism from peers, family, friends, the media? Why is that such a big fear? And how do we overcome criticism from others?
Psychologically, we feel a sense of safety and security when we think people agree with us. Right? That is just psychologically true, that we would rather avoid conflict and sit in a space where we agree, and therefore we have something called confirmation bias and the echo chamber, where we keep surrounding ourselves with thoughts and ideas that are similar and reaffirm our beliefs. Now, I think that you can have that and at the same time entertain ideas that you're not sure about yet. And so one of my favorite examples was MIT did this study where they asked people which person was more creative and innovative. And they showed 2 charts. One chart was employee A and the other chart was employee B. The chart for employee A, all of the people they knew each other and knew them back. So it was almost like a closed loop. And employee B, they knew lots of people who didn't know each other. And they found that people who have more people in their network who don't know each other are more likely to be creative and productive.
Really? Why is that?
Because they expose you to opposing ideas and they may counteract how you think. So one of my favorite examples of this is a conversation between Mark Zuckerberg and one of his mentors. So Mark Zuckerberg told this story at the Facebook headquarters a few years back. I wasn't there, I've seen it on video, and I'm sure it's available. And he talks about how when he was struggling with the direction of Facebook in 2009, he approached his mentor. And his mentor happened to be Steve Jobs.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool. I
That's
wish.
really
yeah,
cool.
It's so cool, man. And so anyway, so Mark Zuckerberg goes to Steve Jobs and he says, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. Remember at that time, Facebook was 5 years old.
There was no fan pages, I don't think.
I don't think there was no creators. I don't think there were fan pages. It was very much used by university students
Still,
at that stage.
yeah.
Like I think it was mainly like Ivy Leagues.
College
and
kids still,
College
yeah.
kids. And I don't even think it was international in a massive way. Very early days, and now we can't even think of that. But 2009, I mean, you just about had the iPhone and just about had Instagram
Crazy,
and YouTube.
man.
So he went up to Steve Jobs and he said, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. What do I do? Now, Steve Jobs at that time obviously was already the founder of one of the biggest brands on the planet, and obviously the brand still is. He had access to investors. He had access to business coaches. I'm sure he had access to life coaches. He had access to
health experts. Everything.
He had access to anything. Like I don't think there was anyone, scientists, PhDs. I don't think there's anyone in the world who Steve Jobs couldn't have called up at the time. And Steve Jobs said something amazing. He said, you know what, Mark? I think you should go and live in an ashram in India.
He did not.
He did.
No
It's
way.
a true story. He goes, and when you go to live in the ashram in India, That's where, if you spend some time there, that's where you'll find your answer.
Shut up.
And Mark did it.
No way.
Mark went to the ashram. This is a true story.
For how long?
I believe he was there for, I've seen two online. I've seen two versions of the exact time he was there. I've seen some people said it was a couple of days or a week, or some people said it's a month. So I think it's hazy how much time he actually spent there. But he went. And he says that based on that experience, that's where he found the direction of Facebook, to be connecting people. Now, the reason why I love that story is because it's the unobvious, alternative, random connection. And when Harvard did a study of 3,000 executives, they looked at and asked them, what's the number one skill for being a good leader? And a lot of people would say communication. A lot of people would say vision, strategy, humility. And the number one answer that they got from 3,000 executives was the one word, which is called associating. And what that means is the ability to spot patterns where everyone else doesn't see them. And that's the connect, that real leaders can spot patterns and connections in anomalies. So most people will be like, what has an ashram got to do with a tech platform?
Right.
But that is where you expand your mind to find answers that you never expected.
How important is creating alone time with noises, people, busy work, to allow your mind to expand? Is that the only time, in that silence? I think you mentioned it. Silence to hear in between the lines. Yeah. Is that where we start to hear what we're supposed to be creating, where we're supposed to be heading, our mission? I'm really glad you brought that back. I wanted to get back to that. So when we talk about, there's a beautiful statement by David Lynch, who's movie producer and a deep meditator. And he says that prayer is how you talk to God, and meditation is how God talks to you. Ooh.
And whether you believe in God or the universe or spirit or divine, whatever it means, the point is that there is a dialogue and a conversation.
So prayer is like you're speaking, you're saying, here's what I want.
Here's how I feel.
Help me,
yeah.
And meditation is more receiving.
Receiving, yeah. And so I love that statement, because I think it makes it very clear that we have to have a dialogue with the universe. We have to have a dialogue with people in our lives. We have to have a dialogue, and there's both giving and receiving. So when I talk about hearing in between the lines, the best example I can give you, Lewis, is let's take a look at you and your relationship and mine and my wife's relationship. One of us is always traveling.
Yeah.
So you travel, your partner travels, I travel, my wife travels. Sometimes we're missing each other. Imagine you've got really busy and hectic. Do you think, and anyone listening or watching, you can ask the same question, if you were really busy and hectic and stressed out, do you think your partner feels comfortable to tell you how they feel and get your attention?
If I'm busy, stressed out, overwhelmed, will my partner tell me how I feel about themselves or about...
Yeah, do you think they would feel confident to be like, Lewis, I need to tell you something really important?
I don't think they would.
They wouldn't.
Yeah.
They really wouldn't, because...
They don't want to stress you out more.
They don't want to stress you out more.
You're not present, all these things.
Exactly. So, exactly that. And so what happens is, when you're still, your mind and body actually get to speak to you and give you signals of how they feel. And so when you're still, that's when you notice that ache in your foot that you haven't noticed for a month. Sometimes when you slow down, that's when you get sick, because your body wasn't allowing itself to be sick because you were pushing it to get through stuff. And so just like your partners can't communicate with you until you slow down, your body and mind can't communicate with you until you still. And so there's a beautiful Buddhist teaching that says what movement does for the body, stillness does for the mind. And so when we find that space, stillness, and solitude, you really are able to hear your deepest desires and challenges, your physical pains and areas of growth. It's one of the reasons why when people meditate, they feel sleepy afterwards and they think they're doing it wrong, but actually they're doing it right. Meditation just told you needed more sleep.
You need to rest.
Yeah, meditation was just a signal. So sometimes when I meditate with people that I'm coaching,
it's like pass out.
Yeah, some of them will be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jay. I'm just feeling so tired." And I'm like, "No,
then sleep. Then rest."
Yeah, that's what your body's telling you, because you finally listened. And some people are like, "Oh, Jay, I feel so energized." And I'm like, yeah, because you allowed yourself to be in line with your body, and now your body's saying that you feel energized. And that's great. You've got that energy. Go work out, go build something. So,
or you've cleared out those negative thoughts, or you've let go of those distractions, or that resentment, and so you're not feeling this weight, so you feel lighter.
Correct. And so that stillness and silence is one of my favorite ways for you to actually build that relationship with hearing your inner voice.
Is there too much silence? Like if you say, okay, 5 hours a day, is there a tipping point when you're like, okay, I think you do 2 hours every morning, but a lot of people say, well, I've only got 20 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Is 5 hours too much? Is an hour, what is the maximum or minimum or the sweet spot you think for people to be silent every day to live a great life?
I think 20 minutes is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Because 20 minutes is significant enough time for your mind to switch off. So we hear that studies showed that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
And a lot of them are repeating.
negative. 80% are negative, and I'm guessing a lot of them are repeated.
Yeah.
And so if you're only going to say, I'm going to do 5 minutes, it just takes 5 minutes to switch off. Like it takes 5 minutes to just overcome that noise. And so I'd say that 20 minutes is a good amount of time. And hey, you're not trying, and I think this is the challenge with meditation and mindfulness, you're not trying to empty your mind. You're just trying to be present with it and actually listen to it and experience it.
Why did you decide that you wanted to be a monk in the first place, and how old were you when you did that?
Absolutely. So the story starts with something I've been saying a lot called you can't be what you can't see. So I didn't grow up wanting to be a monk.
What did you grow up wanting to be?
Yeah, I grew up wanting to be a mix of an art director, like for a big magazine or online company, because I loved design, I loved graphics, I loved video and art when I was growing up. I loved philosophy and I loved economics. Those are like my 3 favorite subjects: art, design, philosophy, and economics. And I always thought I'd be something boring like an investment banker, because I often say when you grow up in a Asian or Indian family, and if you have any Asian or Indian followers, they'll agree, I had 3 options. I could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, right? Those were like my 3 options. And so that's what I was going to be. I couldn't be any of those, so I was going to be an investment banker or a strategy consultant, because I was like, I'm rubbish at medicine, I'm not very good at law. So I was kind of going down that route, because you can't be what you can't see. And growing up as a young Asian person in London, you don't see many people in the media, you don't see many Asians in sport, you don't see many Asians in anything apart from accountancy, business, medicine, and law. That's literally what you see. And then I was 18. I'm at university. I'm studying my undergraduate, which is in behavioral science.
In London.
In London. So I've always been fascinated by why people do what they do. Always fascinated by why we make decisions, why we lie, why people cheat, why people pretend to be someone they're not. Like all those questions always fascinated me, but just from an intellectual point of view, rather than helping people unpackage it. So I was studying that. And then at my university, we'd have some of the best entrepreneurs coming to speak every week.
In London, right?
In London, at Cass Business School. So there's people coming in every single week. And then I found out that the week later, after been watching entrepreneur after entrepreneur, loved hearing from CEOs, their success stories. I was a huge fan of rags to riches stories. Like not the riches because of wealth, but just that whole thing of like people going from nothing to something. Like that fascinated me. So I used to read autobiographies. I thought I hated reading until I was 14, until someone handed me an autobiography. I think I remembered reading The Rock's autobiography back then too, because I used to watch wrestling. But anyway, so I'm fascinated by people who go from nothing to something. And then a monk's invited to speak at my university, and I actually get forced along. I'm actually not that interested. I'm like, what's a monk gonna teach me? Who cares? Like, never seen a monk in my life, don't really know what they do. Get forced by one of my mates to come along. I basically have nothing better to do that night. I turn up. I'm hearing this monk speak, and he captivated me like the most beautiful woman in the world, right? I was just completely enthralled and addicted to everything he said. I was hanging off every word, and there was a voice in my head that was just like, who is this guy? And then I find out that he'd given up jobs at Google and Microsoft to become a monk. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, who does that? Everyone that I've ever met, that's all they've been chasing. And all the stories that I'd followed in life were people who went from nothing to something. And here was a guy who had something, but had traded it to have nothing, but looked like the happiest person I'd ever met. So it was like the most paradoxical moment of my life, like the most ironic thing that could have happened. Anyway, so I go and speak to him afterwards. I loved networking with speakers. I'd always approach people after their speech if I was moved. I went up to him and I just said, you know what, everything you said just resonated with me. And there was one thing that he said that stood above everything, and he spoke about this principle about plant trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit. All right? Plant trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit. What he meant was selfless service, giving without expecting, using everything you have, doing something for nothing, just being able to give. And for some reason, that 18-year-old me, hearing about selflessness, that word kind of just, I don't know what it was. It was just one of those moments that just, it penetrated through every desire I had. And service and selflessness became like my biggest aspiration in like a moment. And I started talking